Joji McKees, a 26-year-old cog in society's machine, trudges home, utterly exhausted. He laments his life of unreasonable bosses, endless overtime, and a bleak future at a corporate company. He dreams of a simpler life in the countryside, surrounded by dogs and cats. As he walks through a quiet alley, a sudden, strange animal cry pierces the silence, stopping him in his tracks. Decades ago, the world changed irrevocably. Dungeons suddenly appeared throughout Japan, and from them emerged monstrous creatures that brought great chaos. In response, nations scrambled to research and implement countermeasures, and over time, the immediate threat has been greatly diminished. The fairy tales of old, dungeons, monsters, swords, and magic, are now the reality of modern life. A new profession, that of the explorer, has become commonplace. These individuals are strictly managed, tasked with bringing back resources from the dungeons and preventing monsters from escaping into the outside world. Following the strange cry, Joji finds its source, a small, limp form lying on the pavement. He crouches down, peering at it in the dim light, wondering what it could possibly be. He gets a closer look and realizes it's a monster, one that must have wandered into the city by mistake. The small, dragon-like creature is covered in terrible injuries. He asks if it's okay, noting how weak it is, but the creature suddenly lunges, sinking its teeth into his arm. The bite is startling, but Joji's fear is quickly replaced by concern. He thinks that this is far scarier than the crows at the garbage dump, but he knows this is no time to be afraid. The creature is trembling, and, at this rate, it will surely die. He looks at the small, wounded creature with compassion. Gently, he extends his hand towards it, speaking in a soft voice. He tells it that it's okay, that it doesn't need to be afraid, and promises to heal it right now. As he speaks, a brilliant, warm light emanates from his outstretched palm. Mysterious glyphs materialize in the air as the radiant energy envelopes the small dragon, beginning the healing process. He channels his energy, recalling a time in his youth when he excelled at healing magic in school. The light from his hands intensifies, completely mending the creature's wounds in a final, brilliant flash. With the spell complete, he gently asks the little creature if it still hurts. The dragon child looks down, licks its now-healed leg, and seems to confirm that the pain is gone. He sighs in relief, glad that it's feeling better. In response, the creature happily leaps onto his shoulder. Joji decides it's time to leave, remembering his civic duty to report monster sightings, especially since the creature's parents are nowhere to be found. As he walks down the alley, he suddenly feels the creature on his shoulder begin to tremble and flail its tiny limbs in distress. He stops, turning his head to ask what's wrong. His question is answered by the sudden appearance of a towering, shadowy monster at the end of the alley, flanked by a swarm of smaller spider-like creatures. Joji cries out in shock, instinctively pulling the small dragon close to protect it. He immediately turns and flees, wondering aloud why spider monsters are in the middle of the city. As he runs, the small dragon in his arms begins to glow, its mouth opening wide as it gathers energy. From its mouth erupts a powerful beam of pure energy, blasting through the alley and vaporizing the pursuing spider creatures in a brilliant flash. The beam strikes the large shadow monster, obliterating it in a massive explosion. The force of the blast sends Joji tumbling backward into a pile of trash bags, where he sits stunned, gasping at the incredible power he just witnessed. The little dragon, meanwhile, floats contentedly in the air. Moments later, 2 police officers arrive on the scene. The male officer approaches Joji, remarking that he's been through quite an ordeal and asking if he's injured. His female partner confirms that Joji seems fine, adding that incidents like this are extremely rare. Their attention then turns to the small creature in Joji's arms. The female officer coos at how cute and friendly it is. Her partner, however, expresses his surprise, questioning if it's truly a dragon child, and remarking that it's highly unusual for a monster to become so attached to a person. Clutching the small dragon, Joji anxiously asks the police officers if it would be wrong to take it home. The male officer reassures him that it's perfectly fine. Tame monsters are legally treated as personal property once an application is filed at the city office. Joji, however, remains worried, realizing the unprecedented nature of the situation could attract media attention, as dragons are exceptionally rare. The female officer, her eyes sparkling with an idea, leans in and suggests he upload videos of the creature to social media. She explains that cute animal and monster videos are hugely popular, and a dragon child would absolutely go viral. Joji, unfamiliar with the concept, listens with curiosity. She continues enthusiastically, telling him there are people who have built mansions by monetizing cat videos. The word mansions echoes in Joji's mind, sparking a vision of quitting his job for a quiet life in the countryside. He quickly dismisses the thought, feeling it would be wrong to use Ohagi as a mere money-making tool. Her tone then shifts to one of practical concern as she wonders aloud if the little one will grow much bigger. She points out that adult dragons can reach the size of heavy machinery, and the cost of food and proper housing would be astronomical. The thought of his tiny companion becoming a colossal, expensive beast fills Joji with dread. Sensing his master's distress, Ohagi affectionately licks Joji's cheek. Touched by the gesture, Joji apologizes to the creature for being unreliable, acknowledging that it must be hungry. His resolve suddenly hardening, Joji declares that he will make money for video uploads. The female officer cheers, promising to be his very first fan. With his new purpose set, Joji prepares to leave. He soon arrives at a quiet, two-story house in a residential neighborhood. Stepping inside, he announces his return into the empty home, noting sadly that there is no one there to welcome him. The messy kitchen, with unwashed dishes and full trash bags, underscores the silence. His gaze drifts to a pair of framed photographs. He recalls his past. His mother died in an accident when he was young, and his father passed away from sudden illness just as he began his working life. Kneeling on the floor, Joji reflects on the loneliness of living in the old house his parents left behind. He tells Ohagi that they're both dirty and should take a bath. He then clasps his hands in prayer, and to his side, the small dragon faithfully mimics the gesture. He began his new life with Ohagi by giving the little creature a bath. In the warm, soapy water, he playfully scrubbed the dragon, asking if there were any itchy spots he'd missed, and noted with a smile that it could swim. After drying the small dragon, he sat with it, his mind turning back to the idea of uploading videos. He recalled having a social media account that friends had encouraged him to create, though he'd never really used it. He pulled out his phone, the recording interface glowing on the screen. As Ohagi nudged the device curiously, he gently told the creature it wasn't a toy. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. He only ever watched videos and had no idea what he should even film. Setting aside his filming concerns, he focused on their first meal together. He presented a plate of fried chicken to Ohagi, explaining that his research suggested dragons were omnivores. With a final warning that the food was hot, he announced that it was ready. The little dragon didn't hesitate, opening its mouth wide to take a large bite of the chicken. Joji, phone in hand and already recording, watched intently. Its reaction was immediate and clear. Ohagi's eyes widened, sparkling with pure delight. Seeing the creature's obvious enjoyment, Joji leaned in with a grin, asking if it tasted good. While Ohagi savored its meal, Joji began to eat his own, the same tasteless convenience store bento he always had. But this time was different. The simple act of sharing a meal with someone, even a small dragon, brought back a flood of nostalgic memories of eating with his family. He realized then that food shared with another always tastes delicious. After they had both finished, Ohagi lay on its back, completely sated. Joji chuckled, looking down from his phone to comment on its full, round belly, a sentiment the dragon punctuated with a loud, contented burp. He scrolled through the many photos and videos he had taken, considering uploading them to his page later. As he looked at the images of his new companion, a crucial thought occurred to him. He still hadn't decided on a name. He pondered what name would be appropriate for the little creature. It was mostly blackish, but its belly was white. Black on the outside, but white inside. The dragon tilted its head, looking up at him with a questioning gaze. The thought sparked a vivid memory from his childhood. He saw his mother in the kitchen, her back to him, as his younger self toddled forward, asking what she was making. It was his absolute favorite treat. The memory provided the perfect name, a word that surfaced in his mind with sudden clarity: Ohagi. A smile spread across his face. He then scooped the creature into his arms, lifting it high. With a joyful expression, he officially declared, "Your name is Ohagi." The little dragon let out a happy chirp in response. His grip was firm yet gentle, a silent promise of care. Looking the newly named dragon in the eyes, he made a heartfelt declaration. He told Ohagi that from this day forward they were family. He formally introduced himself, saying, "Nice to meet you, Ohagi." With their bond formalized, he decided to share the news, pulling out his phone and beginning to type a new post. "I picked up a dragon." After tapping out the message and successfully posting it, he finally felt the day's exhaustion wash over him. Lying in bed with Ohagi nearby, he let out a massive yawn, feeling incredibly sleepy. But even as he drifted off, his mind was already racing with plans for his day off tomorrow. He had so much to do. File the breeding registration at the city office, buy filming equipment, and maybe even take Ohagi to a veterinary hospital. It would be a super busy day, but the thought filled him with excitement. He lay in bed, the little dragon nestled beside him, and mused on his life as a corporate slave. Yet, he couldn't help but feel that the coming day, though busy, would also be fun. As Ohagi nudged the covers, he wondered if the creature wanted to come in. He pulled back the covers, allowing the small creature to settle in beside him. With a gentle smile, he wished Ohagi a good night, promising to see him in the morning. In response, the little dragon snuggled closer, finding comfort and warmth. Soon, both were fast asleep, resting peacefully side by side. With this, the streaming life of Joji and Ohagi was set to begin. As the night drew to a close, a notification chimed on his phone. The popular streamer, Ryan, had liked his post. On social media, the channel banner for a streamer named Ryan Sean, boasting 4.19 million subscribers, poses a question to the public. Has everyone seen the dragon that's been trending? The streamer herself, Ryan, a popular dungeon explorer, is live at her desk. She excitedly confirms she's talking about Ohagi-chan, exclaiming how incredibly cute the dragon is. She notes that the owner plans to upload more content soon and muses that she would love to request a collaboration stream. While she celebrated the dragon's cuteness, its owner, Joji, was experiencing the opposite reaction. He stares at his phone, overwhelmed by a flood of online comments declaring Ohagi's cuteness and expressing a desire to own a dragon, leaving him to wonder what on earth is happening. He clenches his phone, his expression a mask of irritation. The constant stream of notifications finally made sense. The situation had blown up into something incredible, and he was not pleased. His annoyance carried over into his workday. As he greets his colleagues, he reflects on the hassle of officially registering Ohagi, an event so rare it shocked the city office staff. Still, with the paperwork done and new filming equipment acquired over the weekend, he felt the video uploads should now proceed smoothly. As he settled in, a boisterous voice cut through the office calm. His junior colleague, Ushimaki, energetically wished him a good day. Joji, noticing her tired complexion, advised her to rest if she'd been up all night, but she laughed it off. Grabbing a drink, she suddenly grew serious, demanding he listen as she declared that she, Ushimaki Megumi, has a dream. She then launched into a passionate declaration of her dream, to become a supernova VTuber like Kika Nikamiya. Once famous, she plans to quit the company and watch her investments multiply. Joji, unimpressed, dryly commented on her energy. Another colleague reminded Ushimaki that it was almost time to start work. Joji's exasperation was overshadowed by the arrival of the company president, a man he considered the root of all evil at the firm. He internally lamented how the company's reputation had soured under the new leadership. The president, noticing Joji, suggested that his connections could be very useful for the company, before demanding to know why Joji was interacting with his employees. Before the president could continue, another employee, Furuhata, stepped in, informing him of urgent documents needing his attention. The president dismissed it as an annoyance. Furuhata then turned to Joji, surprising him with the news that he had a visitor waiting at the front desk. At the reception desk, the visitor was revealed to be a familiar, mustached man. It was Hazama, who raised a hand in a cheerful greeting, exclaiming that it had been a while. He cheerfully apologizes for barging in without an appointment as Joji rushes into the meeting room, breathless and apologizing for the delay. Joji's university friend, Furuhata Kazuyoshi, also greets him, asking how he has been. The meeting is with representatives from Nagano Pharmaceuticals, a major company specializing in health foods, supplements, and energy drinks, including portable food recommended for dungeon exploration. Joji expresses his gratitude for their products, and Hazama, noticing he looks tired, offers him a drink. After the initial pleasantries, Hazama's demeanor turns serious. He states that he has come today on important business, capturing Joji's full attention. On a laptop between them, an image of Ohagi is clearly visible, confirming the subject of their meeting. Joji's eyes widen in shock. He blurts out, questioning how they could possibly know about Ohagi. Hazama simply asks if he is surprised. Furuhata explains that he saw Joji's rare social media post and was shocked when it went mega viral, so he told Hazama. The PR manager then lays out their proposal. Knowing Joji is considering streaming, they believe Ohagi is the perfect image for their new product and they desperately want to work with him. His friend adds that this is a personal request, not a company one, meaning all the credit would go directly to Joji. He encourages him, suggesting that if it goes well, his dream of independence isn't so far-fetched. A visibly moved Joji agrees to give it a try, unaware that their conversation is being observed. Meanwhile, the company president smirks as he looks at a picture of Ohagi on his phone. He muses about the stray cat turned into a dragon and considers it unacceptable that such an important conversation is happening without his knowledge or involvement. With a newfound sense of purpose, Joji leaves the office for the day. As he walks away, Ushimaki rushes out behind him, calling for her senpai to wait up. As Joji walks with his co-worker, Ushimaki, he asks about her visit. She explains that Nagano Pharmaceuticals contacted her directly with a request. On his phone, he can see Ohagi sleeping peacefully. Before he can react, Ushimaki suddenly grabs him, desperately shouting for her senpai to hire her for the project as well. Her desperation pours out in a flood of tears as she confesses that her VTuber activities are failing and she's drowning in debt. She vows to do anything to serve him faithfully, pleading with him not to abandon her. Mortified by the public spectacle and her choice of words, Joji grabs her shoulders, urging her to stop saying things that could be so easily misunderstood. Now at the entrance to his apartment, she continues her pitch, listing her qualifications: video editing, thumbnail creation, and social media management. She presses him, questioning if he, a complete amateur, is truly sure he can handle such an important project all by himself. Without waiting for an answer, she bursts into his home, cheerfully announcing her intrusion. Joji stands in the doorway, stunned, realizing she didn't just talk her way in, she forced it. She brushes off his shock, reframing her actions as the sincere devotion of a junior wanting to help her senpai, before eagerly asking where she can find Ohagi. Just as he starts to say that Ohagi is probably sleeping, the small dragon creature launches itself across the room with a piercing cry, aimed directly at Ushimaki's face. It latches onto her, but Ushimaki remains completely calm, warmly introducing herself to Ohagi-chan. Joji kneels beside them, explaining to a puzzled Uzumaki that the creature is just being wary because she stared at it so intensely. She smiles confidently, revealing a bag of groceries and declaring that she came prepared. With a triumphant peace sign, she explains her philosophy. The way to capture the hearts of animals, monsters, and even boys is through their stomachs. A short while later, she presents an impressive spread of food. Joji and Ohagi sit at the table, their expressions a mixture of shock and awe. As she invites them to eat, they both take a bite and are instantly captivated by the delicious meal. He is deeply touched, remarking that it tastes like genuine home cooking and that he could eat it every single day. His earnest praise catches Uzumaki completely by surprise, leaving her blushing and flustered. In another location, a young woman with glasses adjusts a complex piece of equipment. With everything in place, she announces that the setup is complete. All that's left is to turn on the power. She presses a button on the spherical device. Watching from the side, a nervous Joji quietly asks if that's the correct one. With a soft click, the device springs to life, hovering in air and projecting a holographic reading. Joji, Uzumaki, and Ohagi all gasp in unison, their eyes wide with wonder. Uzumaki's amazement quickly turns to excitement. She identifies the device as the latest magical camera, a high-performance model hugely popular with dungeon streamers. She explains that Joji splurged on it, noting its advanced features like auto-tracking and a magical barrier strong enough to repel monster attacks. Brimming with enthusiasm, she urges him to start filming right away, much to his surprise. Heeding her advice, they quickly set up the filming area. Joji sits cross-legged on the tatama mat, the new camera floating before him, its recording light active. He flashes a smile for the lens and begins his introduction, welcoming viewers to the Ohagi channel. With a professional flair, he announces a sponsorship from Nagano Pharmaceuticals and presents their new product, a brightly colored packet labeled Dragon Energy. He explains to his audience that while the product resembles cute, colorful gummies, it's actually a portable food designed for explorers. He places a few of the treats onto a small dish in front of Ohagi, expressing his uncertainty about whether the creature will even try them. To his delight, Ohagi devours the gummies instantly, its eyes sparkling with pleasure. Joji exclaims that the little dragon seems to love them and decides to try one himself. He's pleasantly surprised by the fizzy carbonation and delicious flavor. He happily reports that since it's a government-approved nutritional supplement, it's perfectly safe and encourages his audience to buy some. The moment the recording stops, Uzumaki erupts with praise. She declares the take was perfect, especially Ohagi's reactions, and that they can use it immediately. With a confident point, she vows to edit it into a viral video that will greatly please their sponsor, finally putting her intense, if previously unappreciated, studies to good use. Joji looks on, slightly bewildered by her assertive declaration. At the office, Uzumaki praises Joji, calling him amazing for handling the daily overtime at such a demanding workplace. She admits she can only work so hard because it's something she loves. Joji, with a grim expression and Ohagi peeking from his bag, offers some senior advice. Always keep a resignation letter handy. The mindset that one can quit at any time, he explains, makes a person stronger. Uzumaki seems to take his words to heart. Her mood shifts to excitement as she suggests to Joji that they should film several eating scenes for their video project, and he readily agrees. The effort of their all-night session quickly catches up to her, however, as she lets out a massive, exhausted yawn. Later, while walking together, Joji apologizes for making Uzumaki help him until the video was finished. She, still visibly tired, admits they got so absorbed in vlogging that they barely slept at all. He reassures her that thanks to her help, they made a great video, holding up his phone to show the save data. Just as he mentions contacting Furuhata to watch it, a hand claps him firmly on the shoulder. The hand belongs to their company president, who grins widely and snatches the phone from Joji's grasp, remarking how touching it is to see them working all night for the company. Joji and a newly arrived Furuhata protest, insisting it's not company data and demanding it back. The president casually dismisses them, stating he knows all about their work for Nagano Pharmaceuticals. He then looks at the phone screen, which displays a picture of Ohagi. The president addresses Joji directly, stating he has a request regarding the dragon he's keeping. Joji is stunned, wondering how he could possibly know. The president explains that a dragon child is a money tree, and the world won't simply leave it alone. His demand is blunt and absolute. Hand the dragon over to the company. Joji shouts in disbelief. The president excitedly lays out his plan to use Ohagi as the company mascot for TV commercials and merchandise, predicting their performance will skyrocket. He envisions the dragon working to make them easy money. Turning to Joji, he offers to buy Ohagi and even dangles the possibility of a promotion. As the offer is made, Joji's expression darkens into pure rage, and he quietly seethes, warning the president not to mess with him. As his anger mounts, Joji's thoughts drift to the creature at the center of the conflict. He reflects that although he and Ohagi just met, the little dragon has already grown attached, acting spoiled and offering happy smiles. He remembers the simple life they've begun to share, eating meals together, sleeping together, and realizes just how much happiness these small, quiet moments bring him. He reflected on how Ohagi reminded him of what a precious existence is. His resolve hardened as Uzumaki, aghast, questioned how the president could even speak of buying or utilizing Ohagi. In a sudden burst of fury, he lunged forward, grabbing the president by his shirt. He roared that he would not allow his precious family to be treated like an object and vowed to protect Ohagi no matter what. The president, enraged, questioned what right Joji had to speak to him in such a manner. Following his lead, Uzumaki lunged as well, grabbing the president's other arm and demanding he return the precious video she and Joji had made. The president recoiled in surprise, finding their defiance annoying. The president violently shoved Uzumaki away, sending her stumbling. Joji cried out her name in alarm. Just as the president's anger peaked, Furuhata calmly interrupted, announcing he had important business to discuss. He presented a thick stack of papers, identifying them as resignation letters from almost all the employees. The president stared in disbelief. He continued, informing the stunned president that they could no longer tolerate his arrogant behavior. Furthermore, he revealed that someone from the Labor Standards Office was waiting to speak with him. Turning to a bewildered Joji, Furuhata explained that this had been his plan all along. He was just waiting for the right moment. Having heard that Joji found something he wanted to do, Furuhata declared it was time for them to cut ties with the company and follow their own paths. Joji, moved and resolute, agreed. As other employees began to restrain him, the president thrashed wildly, screaming for the traitors to let him go. His desperation mounting, he turned his pleas to Uzumaki, begging her not to abandon him. She could only watch, stunned, as he was dragged away, calling out his title in shock. She, however, was not finished. With the president now unconscious and propped up by Joji and Furuhata, Uzumaki frantically waved her own resignation letter, pleading for someone to take it as well. Her plea went unanswered amidst the chaos. Furuhata could only let out a weary sigh at the scene. Joji, looking down at their former boss's still form, dryly remarked that he was dead. Meanwhile, Uzumaki, having finally submitted her resignation, seemed to sparkle with triumphant relief. Dressed in explorer gear with Ohagi perched on his shoulder, Joji stands before the imposing entrance to a dungeon. An acquaintance calls out his name, startling him from his thoughts. He reflects on the absurdity of his situation, a corporate employee about to enter a dungeon. Shaking off his hesitation, he apologizes for the delay and prepares to move forward. The scene shifts to a few days earlier, inside the Kawazu Animal Hospital. Joji, accompanied by Ryan, expresses his concern that Ohagi's recent lethargy might be due to a lack of exercise or perhaps Uzumaki's rich cooking. However, the hospital director, Kawosika, dismisses the idea of simple obesity. He delivers a more unusual diagnosis. Ohagi is suffering from a magic and combat deficiency. Holding the small dragon, Dr. Kawazu begins to explain. He reminds Joji that spirits are magical life forms composed entirely of energy, a fact Joji recalls from his school days. The doctor clarifies that it is because of these spirits that creatures like Ohagi are able to use magic. He continues, adding that human magic is hereditary, a power not originally present in them. This ability stems from a government countermeasure decades ago, during the Great Chaos when dungeons first appeared, where young citizens were inoculated with spirits. The doctor confirms this history, but emphasizes that monsters are fundamentally different. For monsters, the doctor explains, spirits are naturally present and integral to their bodily functions. He concludes that Ohagi's poor condition is due to spirit growth deficiency from not using enough magic. The recommended treatment is simple. Let Ohagi use its magic freely within a dungeon. Hearing this, Joji resolves to make his debut as an explorer. The doctor's praise then shifts to Joji himself, complimenting his impressive healing magic. He notes that Ryan's severe internal and external injuries healed perfectly without any aftereffects, calling it nothing short of miraculous. With such a skill, he assures Joji, he could certainly succeed as an explorer. This conversation leads them to the Explore Management Bureau, more commonly known as the Guild. Upon entering the bustling guild hall, a cheerful receptionist with pointed ears directs them toward the new registration desk. Joji, clutching Ohagi's carrier, feels a wave of anxiety, believing that becoming an explorer is impossible for him. Ryan tries to reassure him, boasting that with Ohagi, they'll be the strongest, and reminds him that he can always hire an escort for combat if he's afraid. Her thoughts, however, quickly turn to their streaming career. She excitedly reports that their sponsored video with Nagano Pharmaceuticals was a massive success, causing their views and subscriber numbers to skyrocket. With monetization approved, she declares them popular streamers and insists they must capitalize on the momentum by starting to stream from dungeons. Suddenly, a familiar, imposing figure interrupts them. It's the president of Nagano Pharmaceuticals, who overheard the phrase dungeon streaming. He adjusts his sunglasses, his muscular frame towering over them, and directly asks Joji if he intends to register as an explorer. Joji freezes, a sense of dread washing over him as he recognizes the beginning of a classic, troublesome confrontation. His mind races, anticipating the inevitable. He braces himself for the classic harassment trope. the powerful figure telling the weakling to go home. He braced himself for a lecture, but instead, the president's face lit up with excitement. He declared himself a huge fan, even showing off a can of dragon energy drink he'd purchased. Joji could only stare in confusion as Ryan, also present, squealed about how cute Ohagi was, warning Joji that this situation might be unexpectedly complicated. He was then bombarded by the president's enthusiastic suggestion that Ohagi's dungeon stream would be amazing. As the commotion continued, a hooded woman named Liana apologized to Joji for the trouble, noting that he's become quite the celebrity. Thanking him for his help, she began to lead him away. As they walked, she turned her attention to business, asking him to provide more details about the escort he had requested. She then presented a man in traditional garb, introducing him as the explorer Kuriko Hanzo. Ryan eagerly asked Hanzo to take care of them, and Joji quickly followed suit. The stoic explorer simply agreed to take care of him as well. With the arrangements made, the group prepared to depart. Liana's professional demeanor melted away as she gazed at Ohagi, exclaiming that exploring with the famous dragon was an immense privilege. She excitedly asked for a photo, much to Joji's continued bewilderment. She then shifted back to her role, explaining the guild's procedures. She described it as being similar to a mountain climbing notification system, where an explorer's registration transmits their identification, location, and entry time. This system ensures a rescue party is dispatched if they don't return within a set time limit. Demonstrating by scanning Hanzo's permit, she confirmed his entry before turning to Joji and asking if he had his. Beyond a sterile, modern doorway lies the entrance to the dungeon, a threshold to an unknown world. As the group descends the stairs, Liana explains the history of their world's greatest discovery, the crystal tray and monsters that suddenly appeared decades ago. These dungeons, she elaborates, were treasure troves of precious materials that fascinated humanity and gave rise to the profession of explorers. She turns to Joji, apologizing if she scared him and gently reminding him to never let his guard down. Joji, sweating with nervousness, is only slightly reassured when she points out that her role as an escort and Ohagi's presence should put him at ease. They continue down the long, brightly lit staircase until Liana announces that they have arrived at their destination. Joji stares forward, his eyes wide with awe. Liana explains that from this point on, they're entering a world with many places still unexplored and not fully understood by humanity. Stepping out of the corridor, they find themselves in a vast, ethereal space dominated by a single, barren tree. With a welcoming gesture, Liana formally introduces them to the dungeon. Joji can only whisper in amazement as a small, white, bird-like creature flutters down and lands gently on his outstretched hand. The true scale of the environment is revealed. They're standing in a lush, vibrant forest. As other creatures fly past, Ohagi leaps forward, tail wagging with pure excitement, while Joji fully comprehends that this is a dungeon. Liana acknowledges his surprise, noting that being instantly transported into a forest is jarring for a first-timer. She suggests they explore casually, as they are in a designated beginner-friendly zone with weak monsters. Before Joji can respond, his attention is caught by something else, and a notification suddenly appears. A live stream has just begun. The broadcast originates from a small, spherical drone designed to resemble Ohagi. It cheerfully greets the viewers of the Ohagi channel as comments from excited fans begin to flood in. Its camera lens fixed on Joji, the drone broadcasted his cheerful greeting. He announced to his viewers that he and Ohagi were exploring a dungeon, and since it was his first time, he had hired an escort. He gestured toward Liana, but explained he wouldn't be introducing her to protect her privacy. The on-screen comments praised his consideration and noted Ohagi's uncharacteristically serious expression. The lighthearted broadcast was abruptly cut short when Liana called out a sharp warning. Monsters were approaching. A large, bird-like creature materialized from the trees. Liana's gaze hardened as she quickly assessed the threat, surmising there were at least two of them. Before she could finish her count, the avian monster lunged, its body a black slash against the forest backdrop. Joji recoiled, his face a mask of shock at the sudden, violent attack. The immediate threat vanished in an instant. Liana, her hands clasped together, looked on with pure admiration. She praised Ohagi for its tremendous power, exclaiming how incredibly strong her favorite little dragon was. Her praise was cut short as three more monsters, small, black, and spider-like, scuttled out from the shadows. Without a moment's hesitation, Ohagi unleashed a brilliant sphere of energy from its mouth, vaporizing one of the creatures instantly. The attack continued, wiping out the remaining threats before they could close the distance. With the area clear once more, Liana voiced her growing unease. This forest, she noted, was usually much calmer. She confessed that she had been sensing something odd since they arrived. Beside her, Ohagi stood alert, its ears twitching as if confirming her suspicion. Her feeling proved correct as a new wave of monsters, including a large wolf-like beast, swarmed them. Liana moved to intercept them while Joji provided aid from the backline, casting support magic to increase their speed and defense. He felt a surge of satisfaction, glad that his practice was proving useful in a real battle. Amidst the chaos, Ohagi suddenly let out a low growl, its gaze fixed on something unseen deeper in the forest. It then bolted, dashing away from the fight. Joji cried out its name in alarm. Hanzo immediately instructed him to follow Liana, who was already moving to pursue the small dragon. In a sun-dappled forest clearing, Joji discovers a massive, white-furred wolf lying gravely wounded on the ground. Blood pools beneath it, and Ohagi is perched gently on its back, seemingly trying to comfort the injured beast. The great wolf, blood trickling from its mouth, slowly opens a weary eye. It gazes at Ohagi, who nuzzles against its fur with a soft coo. As Joji moves closer, Liana rushes to intercept him, her voice filled with alarm. She warns him not to approach the wounded beast, calling it dangerous. Joji, however, dismisses her concern, stating firmly that he has to help it. He looks at the creature, a memory surfacing. He realizes this is just like when he found Ohagi. With renewed determination, he declares that he cannot simply leave the wolf to its fate. His mind flashes back to the day he met Ohagi, surrounded by onlookers shouting warnings. Even then, he had insisted it was fine and that he would heal the small creature. Liana's urgent shout of "Look up!" shatters his recollection. Heeding her cry, Joji glances upward into the dark foliage. A grotesque, insectoid monster hangs there, its multiple eyes fixed upon him with predatory intent. Before the creature can attack, Liana springs forward, her powerful kick sending it flying. But the relief is short-lived. Joji sees more of the monsters emerging from the shadows, realizing with dread that they are reinforcements. They're completely surrounded. Liana grits her teeth, acknowledging that escaping while protecting both Joji and Hanzo is impossible. In response, Joji unleashes a wave of power, shouting that he has cast maximum buffs and that they must hold their ground. Despite the overwhelming odds, Liana is stunned to see Joji still focused on healing the wolf. He apologizes for his unreasonable behavior, but declares he won't give up on a life he can save. Elsewhere, Hanzo steels himself, resolving to become a decoy if it comes to that. He continues tending to the wolf, heedless of the danger. Liana watches, perplexed as to why he would go to such lengths. Her gaze falls upon Ohagi, who puffs out its chest with pride. In that moment, she understands it was this same kindness that drew Ohagi to Joji in the first place. As the battle raged around it, the party fought with desperate coordination. Liana and Hanzo moved with deadly efficiency, cutting down the swarming insectoids. Hanzo noted Liana's skill, impressed by her competence as an escort. Spotting a monster breaking through their lines and heading straight for Joji, Liana cried out a warning. Joji, still channeling his healing magic, commanded Ohagi to intercept the largest of the approaching threats. Responding to the command, Ohagi unleashed a concentrated blast of energy, roaring for it to blow the fast-approaching enemy away. While his companions fought, Joji remained focused on the great wolf, pouring his energy into the creature. He realized with growing alarm that the wounds were healing far too slowly. He questioned if something was interfering with his magic, forcing himself to push past the panic and concentrate harder on the being he was trying to save. He was startled from his concentration when the great wolf stirred, gently licking his hand. The unexpected gesture left him momentarily speechless. Before his eyes, the great wolf's wounds vanished completely, its body enveloped in a soft, healing light. Now fully recovered, the massive creature curled up protectively beside him. A voice suddenly echoes directly in Joji's mind, offering to lend a hand. Startled, Joji recognizes that it is not Hanzo's voice. His attention snaps from Liana, who is busy fending off the monster, to the massive great wolf beside him. As he questions the creature's identity, it lets out a low, resonant growl. He feels a strange energy coursing through him, a sensation of being connected to the wolf. The feeling triggers a recent memory from the research facility, where Ryan had asked if he could understand what Ohagi was saying. Dr. Kawazu, holding the small dragon, had informed them that the examination was over, but that they couldn't leave just yet. Continuing the memory, Dr. Kawazu had explained to Ryan that Joji and Ohagi were connected. He noted, however, that this was just one of many theories on the subject. The doctor's words resurface in Joji's mind. When a strong bond of trust forms between a human and a monster, their spirits can connect, enabling communication, a phenomenon sometimes called taming. Joji had thought it was a wonderful idea at the time. Now, facing the great wolf, the full implication of those words begins to dawn on him. As if reading his thoughts, the great wolf's voice returns, urging him to accept it. The creature then gently nudges him with its massive head, growling with gentle insistence. The moment Joji makes contact, a brilliant surge of power erupts between them. The insectoid monster flinches, sensing an influx of unknown magical knowledge flowing into the human. He doesn't fully understand it, but he can feel the immense power now at his disposal. The great wolf commands him to use it. Joji turns toward Ohagi and unleashes the borrowed energy in a blinding flash, shouting for it to take this power. The insectoid monster braces itself, bewildered by this new development. The blast of light does not strike the monster. Instead, it envelopes Ohagi completely, The small creature cries out as it is engulfed by the radiant, overwhelming energy. From within the light, a new figure emerges and grows, transforming into a towering, bipedal dragonoid warrior. The insectoid monster stares up at the impossible sight, its voice filled with utter disbelief as it shrieks, What is that?" Joji stands frozen in shock. Liana rushes to his side, demanding to know what on earth is happening. He can only stare at the massive draconic being before him and stammer, "Ohagi, is that you?" The transformed creature turns its head toward the great wolf and lets out a low, questioning growl. Her new, imposing form did little to deter the smaller creatures. A swarm of spider-like monsters surged forward, undaunted by the sudden shift in power. The larger insectoid monster, however, recognized the new threat, letting out a low, guttural growl. Joji, still reeling from the transformation, cried out Ohagi's name, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. Her response was not a sound, but a torrent of power. A blinding light gathered within her draconic maw before erupting outwards. The torrent of pure energy tore through the air, incinerating the smaller creatures in its path. The insectoid monster, its bravado gone, turned to flee. It ran away. Joji cried out, watching the desperate escape attempt. But there was no escape. The beam struck its target, engulfing the monster in a cataclysmic explosion of light and force that obliterated everything in its vicinity. Amidst a fading glow of magical energy, a pair of hands pulls back as a voice confirms the successful application of a healing art. Joji expresses his relief at having managed the healing. Beside him, Liana observes that the spiders have not returned, concluding they've made it through the worst. Just as the tension eases, the massive, transformed Ohagi lets out a deep, guttural growl, startling Joji completely. He quickly recovers, marveling at how big and cool Ohagi has become. He pats the dragonoid snout, charmed by its affectionate nature despite its intimidating size. Liana remarks on his amazing accomplishment, having now tamed both a dragon and a great wolf. The wolf barks, and Ohagi seems to communicate that it will soon revert to its normal form. As they speak, a bright light envelopes the large creature, and in an instant, Ohagi is back to its small, familiar self. The group then turns their attention to the great wolf. Joji voices his concern that it might be hunted by other explorers if it travels with them. But the wolf makes its intentions clear. It strongly desires to stay by his side. With the matter settled, Joji turns to his streaming drone with a triumphant pose. He announces to his audience that they've won the battle, gained a new companion, and successfully concluded the Ohagi channel's very first dungeon stream. The stream concludes with an in-screen graphic featuring Ohagi waving goodbye, thanking the viewers, and promising future videos that will include their new wolf companion. A finger presses a button on the control device, and a soft chime confirms that the live broadcast has officially ended. Now off the air, Joji thanks Hanzo for his crucial help. Hanzo, however, deflects the praise, apologizing for allowing such a dangerous situation to unfold. Nearby, Liana examines the defeated insectoid monster, noting she's never seen anything like it and that it resembles a mythical arachne, a fusion of a woman and a spider. She voices her suspicion, finding it highly unusual for an unknown monster to appear in a beginner's dungeon, and suggests they report the incident to the guild. Joji's attention is then drawn to an object Hanzo is inspecting. Hanzo presents a small, black, puzzle-like cube, explaining that it is an item box made from mimics. He demonstrates its function by storing the large monster corpse within it. Joji marvels at the convenience, but Hanzo clarifies its limitations. It is designed for collecting corpses and materials, and cannot store inorganic objects like streaming equipment or any living things. He stared at the spot where the creature had vanished, wondering if he'd imagined a flicker of movement. Liana, meanwhile, asked if the great wolf's injuries had been caused by that arachne. Through Liana's interpretation, the wolf explained that it had been attacked before coming to the dungeon and was caught off guard due to its lingering wounds. Its enemies were not present now. Joji realized that for the great wolf to lose to them, they must be incredibly strong. Liana elaborated on the wolf's message, explaining the dungeon's ecosystem. The great wolf had been acting as a deterrent, keeping the weaker monsters in check. Once it was incapacitated, the spider-like monsters were able to grow their forces unopposed. Joji listened, finally understanding the situation. With the immediate threat gone, he asked Liana to request that the guild investigate and reassess the dungeon's difficulty level. Her agreement was swift. However, Joji's mind snagged on the great wolf's words. Before coming here, the implication of another battleground lingered. As Joji pondered this, Ohagi had its own theory, wondering if the monsters had come from another world connected to the dungeon. The thought struck Joji as well. The entire situation felt like something out of fantasy story, an ice sky. Sometime later, they arrived at the Kawazu Animal Hospital. As Joji stood outside, a voice off-panel expressed amazement, remarking that they had heard he had potential as an explorer. Inside, Dr. Kawazu greeted them, astonished that Joji had tamed such a magnificent great wolf on his very first dungeon trip. Joji apologized for the trouble. Liana explained that Dr. Kawazu was a renowned monster researcher who often assisted the Explorers Guild. To their surprise, Hanzo and the doctor recognized each other, exchanging greetings after a long time. The doctor gave Ohagi a thorough checkup, declaring there was nothing abnormal. Joji sighed in relief. He then turned his attention to the great wolf, confirming it was also fine and had been healed nicely. The large beast affectionately nuzzled the doctor's hand. With the animals cleared, Dr. Kawazu examined the item box. He admitted he had never seen the monster that produced it before and asked Liana for her opinion. Suddenly, his eyes widened. He had seen something. Lucky. Wait up, he called out urgently. At the research facility, Dr. Kawazu apologizes for interrupting, noting how energetic the great wolf, Lucky, is. He promises to explain during the next checkup. Suddenly, the creature freezes, a low growl rumbling in its chest as its eyes widen in distress. The animal erupts into a monstrous form, its body contorting and its fur bristling with violent energy. A small, strange creature is visible on its head. Dr. Kawazu shouts in alarm, ordering Hanzo to the examination room for assistance. Joji, stunned, can only ask what is happening as Hanzo rushes to obey. After the ordeal, Joji anxiously asks if the doctor is all right. Dr. Kawazu reassures him that the creature, now sleeping peacefully, is completely back to normal and its life is not in danger. He decides to keep it overnight for observation, much to Joji's relief. With the immediate crisis averted, the doctor begins a thorough examination of the evidence, carefully isolating a specimen in a vial. He holds up the vial, revealing a small, glowing slug-like creature. Joji stares in disbelief. Dr. Kawazu explains that this parasite was not only inside Lucky, but also infested the arachne and the other spider monsters they had fought in the dungeon. He elaborates that while it looks like a simple creature, its body is composed mostly of magical energy. He theorizes they are spirit-feeding parasites that devour a host's magical power, and in return, drastically increase their aggression and alter their physical form, just as they witnessed. He confesses that he has never encountered such a being before. Liana realizes this must be why the dungeon monsters were so ferocious, noting the arachne was covered in them. Dr. Kawazu then instructs Hanzo to report their findings to the guild immediately, specifying that the creature was a mutated spider monster. A worried Joji asks if Ohagi and the others could also be infected. The doctor reassures him, confirming that his examination of Ohagi and Lucky found no magical disturbances. They are safe. However, he issues a stern warning. His analysis revealed that while parasitized, Lucky's strength and magical power increased dramatically. If this ability-enhancing effect were to become public knowledge, he fears some might try to exploit it. His voice carries over the evening scene, urging them not to spread the information carelessly and to have the guild conduct a secret investigation. Later, as Joji reflects on the existence of such a creature and the need for caution on their next exploration, Ushimaki suddenly tackles him in a hug, crying out how glad she is that he's safe. He finds himself surrounded by celebration. Ushimaki, buzzing with excitement, declares that the live stream was an intense, nail-biting battle, like something from a movie. She marvels at his ability to tame the great wolf and praises Ohagi's powerful final attack. Having been worried since the stream ended, she expresses her relief. Her excitement then shifts to a practical matter. The wolf needs a name. Joji agrees, realizing they need to decide on one. Ushimaki, gesturing to the creature's calm and mature demeanor, suggests a name that is sophisticated and adult-like. Joji ponders this, stroking his chin thoughtfully. He then offers a suggestion of his own, Zintsai. Ushimaki is taken aback, commenting on his unique naming sense. The wolf, however, seems to approve, letting out a single, affirmative woof. Ohagi, perched atop the wolf's head, also seems to agree, settling the matter despite any potential issues. He looks on, a gentle smile on his face. He decides that worrying won't solve anything. For now, it's time to celebrate their new family member. And celebrate they do. Ushimaki presents a platter of premium meat, announcing a feast. The room is filled with joy as they welcome Zintsai to the family and congratulate Ohagi on a job well done, marking the success of their first dungeon stream. Meanwhile, at the Explorers Guild Management Bureau, a more serious task is underway. Liana carefully handles the specimen Dr. Kawazu entrusted to her, the glowing parasite, now contained in a jar. She explains to a guild official that the material is extremely dangerous and must be handled with caution, and that Dr. Kawazu will continue his own analysis. The official confirms they will investigate it urgently. As Liana is instructed to proceed with the utmost secrecy, an unknown figure watches from the shadows of the building. A sly grin spreads across his face, his presence suggesting that the secret investigation may not remain secret for long. Joji, Ohagi, and the great wolf Zintsai arrive at the sprawling entrance of Monster Park. The place was already bustling with people and creatures, a large banner announcing a collaboration event with the Ohagi channel. Joji couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The visit was the culmination of a newly announced collaboration, a prospect that had left both Ohagi and Zintsai stunned with excitement when Joji first shared news. Now, standing at the entrance, he began his stream by explaining the park's concept to his audience. He described it as a massive playground for monsters, with the area divided into two main sections. one for the creatures and another for spectators. He elaborated that it was a fusion of a dog park and a zoo, a perfect arrangement where monsters could play freely while people watched them up close. This win-win setup was already in full display, with Ohagi soaring through the air as Zintsai ran alongside other monsters. This incredible opportunity, he explained to his viewers, was a direct invitation. He enthusiastically promoted the event's special merchandise and menu, urging everyone to visit. Just then, a short, elderly man in a straw hat tipped his brim in greeting, welcoming them formally to Monster Park and introducing himself as the director, Jaibu Fukujiro. The director encouraged him not to feel any pressure, stating that the best way to promote the facility was to simply enjoy it to the fullest. As they headed toward the main area, Joji was already preoccupied, wondering what kind of food he should get for Ohagi. Upon entering, they were greeted by a wondrous sight. The park was filled with whimsical, monster-scale structures and other creatures. Joji and Ohagi stared in amazement while Zintsai, unable to contain its excitement, bounded forward. Ready to join in the fun, Joji stretched his arms, declaring it was time to play. The park was filled with all sorts of interesting equipment. Nearby, a mother with her child shyly approached, asking if her own small monster could play with the famous Sensei. Before Joji could properly respond, Zintsai let out a low, rumbling growl. Its sheer size and intimidating presence caused the smaller monsters to flinch back in fear. Joji quickly stepped in, chiding the great wolf for scaring others and making way for the nervous crowd. While he dealt with the commotion, Ohagi wandered over to a small, panda-like creature. The little monster let out a soft cue sound. Ohagi chirped back, asking if it wanted to go somewhere, before affectionately nuzzling against its new friend. Its owner, a young woman, apologizes for her creature, Bunbuku. Joji, however, is struck by a sense of familiarity, feeling he's seen her somewhere before. Nearby, Ohagi and the great wolf Zintsai are already becoming fast friends, though Zintsai pointedly ignores Joji. She suddenly recognizes him, exclaiming with excitement that she's a fan of his dreams and is pleased to meet Miki-san. Joji is taken aback by the unexpected recognition. She formally introduces herself as Jaiba Chacha, confirming that the tanuki-like creature is Bunbuku. They are the duo behind the popular fluffy video stream, Bunbuku Diary. The name clicks for Joji. He remembers watching their comforting videos during his bleak corporate days. Chacha adds that the park's director, Jaibu, is her grandfather. While the humans talk, Ohagi's imagination runs wild. Gazing at Zintsai, it activates its BL vision, picturing the great wolf as a wild and sexy werewolf. The little dragon finds the combination of attributes delicious, but decides it would personally prefer to pair such a figure with an innocent dragon child. Chacha seems to be having similar thoughts, murmuring Joji's name while imagining how great a doujinshi about him and Zintsai would be. The intense atmosphere makes Zintsai glance back questioningly, causing Joji to feel a sudden, inexplicable unease. Bringing the conversation back, Chacha mentions that her grandfather told her about him and that Bunbuku wants to play with the others. She offers to guide them, and Joji happily accepts. She then points to a massive structure, warning that the obstacle course is monster-sized and difficult for humans. Joji instinctively clutches his side, feeling a familiar ache. Despite the pain, Joji is determined to put his body on the line like a true streamer. As he struggles on a climbing wall, Zintsai effortlessly reaches down, grabs him by his hood, and lifts him up. From below, Ohagi and Chacha watch in awe, with Chacha muttering that the sight is like torture. After their time on the course, Chacha cheerfully suggests they clean the mud off at the monster salon. Joji looks on in disbelief at the high-pressure equipment, questioning if it isn't meant for washing heavy machinery. He braces himself, insisting he came prepared, but his raincoat is rendered useless as a powerful blast of foam and water hits Zintsai, splashing over and completely drenching him. Despite the shock, Joji laughs, finding it fun to be wrapped in what feels like whipped cream. At a resort called Monpa's Hot Spring, Joji soaks in a large public bath, expressing his disbelief that such a place exists. He is joined by the Great Wolf, while Ohagi and the Panda Monster, Bunbuku, splash, and play nearby. A special permit has apparently been obtained for them to be there. Afterward, they relax in an open-air section. While his companions rest on lounge chairs, Joji sinks into a jet bath, feeling himself melt with pleasure. He muses that a hot bath after some exercise is truly the best feeling. The group then moves to the restaurant floor for a meal. Joji takes a bite of a large, panda-themed dish, exclaiming that it's both cute and delicious. He sits with Jaiba Chacha and the Great Wolf, glad to see his large companion is satisfied. Ohagi, too, enjoys a small, custom-made treat. He continues to eat, blissfully thinking that the combination of play, hot springs, and good food makes this feel like a true resort. His pleasant thoughts are shattered as the food suddenly tastes awful, causing him to shout in disgust. The source of the disturbance is another patron, President Abukawa, who has his feet kicked up on a table. He bellows that the meat is tough and smells cheap, demanding the manager be brought to him. Joji stares in shock, recognizing his company's president. He approaches the man, cautiously asking why Mr. Abukawa is here. The president, casually lighting a cigarette, smirks and acknowledges Joji, calling him by his popular streamer name, George. President Abukawa explains that he came to play because he started keeping monsters as well, gesturing to a large slime creature beside him. Joji notices a strange machine inside the slime's body. The president dismisses Joji's questioning, stating he's simply there as a customer. At that moment, Jayabu, Chacha steps forward, pleading with the president to stop disturbing other guests and reminding him that smoking is prohibited in the park. Unfazed, President Abukawa crudely tells her to shut up. He then flicks his lit cigarette directly into the slime monster. Joji and Chacha cry out in horror. The president claims it's fine since the creature eats and dissolves anything. Chacha frantically refutes this, screaming that the cigarette is poison to the slime's body. But the president shows no concern, callously remarking on Joji's lack of affection. His taunts continue as he gets in Joji's face, questioning if he's being doubted and reminding him of the importance of famous streamers. Enraged, Joji grabs the president by his shirt and yells back, demanding to know if he is truly the slime's owner. He holds his ground, his glare fixed on the president. Behind him, the great wolf Zentsai looms, a low growl rumbling in its chest, while Ohagi watches from its perch atop the wolf's head. The president, Abukawa, recoils slightly, gritting his teeth in frustration. Abukawa scoffs, brushing off the confrontation with a dismissive wave. He declares that since he's a generous man, he'll let the incident slide. Joji, however, remains tense, his concern shifting to the mistreated slime monster. Beside him, Chacha quietly expresses her own worry for the creature's well-being. Nearby, away from the tense standoff, Ohagi and the panda monster, Bunbuku, begin to play, chasing each other with cheerful cries. Chacha watches them from a short distance, a small smile gracing her lips at the sight of their innocent fun. She turns back to Joji, thanking him for intervening and apologizing for the disturbance. She laments that there are still people who treat monsters like objects, recounting how her grandfather used to speak of a time when monsters were only seen as terrifying creatures and peaceful coexistence was unimaginable. She explains that her grandfather wanted to change that perception, to show everyone that monsters could be affectionate and become friendly. It was for this reason, she reveals, that he built this very facility. With deep conviction, she calls the park a treasure, a place where monsters can become as close as friends and family. Joji is visibly moved by her passion, softly uttering her name as he looks at her. Their quiet moment is interrupted by a splashing sound. President Abukawa stands by the water, a malicious grin on his face as he empties a small bottle into it. He mutters about wanting to see their stupid faces change. Joji and Chacha turn in alarm, while Bunbuku lets out a questioning cry. Instantly, the monsters erupt in agony. Bunbuku and Zentsai roar, their bodies contorting as they go berserk. A cry for help rings out amidst the chaos as Chacha watches in horror, realizing her beloved Bunbuku has lost control. The enraged Bunbuku lunges directly at Director Jaibu. Chacha screams out for her grandfather as the old man freezes in terror, unable to react to the sudden attack. Before the monster can strike, Joji throws himself forward, catching the flailing Bunbuku in his arms. He shouts that it will be okay and that the monster will recover soon. His face is a mask of grim determination as he struggles to restrain the creature. At that very moment, elsewhere, Liana urgently raised her phone to her ear, delivering a critical message from Mr. Joji. As his phone began to ring, displaying the caller ID, Wakashin Middle, the source of her alarm was dissolving on the ground nearby. The strange slugs fizzled into puddles, prompting a startled, unfinished thought about what they truly were. Over the phone, a distressed Liana reports to Joji that they are caught in a commotion. She confirms that the Arachne's corpse was stolen along with the slugs, and that her group is tracking the culprit by scent. Joji listens with alarm as Liana urgently tells him to use either his or Ohagi's magic on the slugs. On the other end of the line, Dr. Kawazu explains the situation to Liana. He reveals that their investigation found Ohagi's magical energy has the power to destroy the slugs. Since Joji's magic is connected to Ohagi's through spirits, he reasons it should have the same effect. He then asks for confirmation that Zentsai was clear of any parasites during his recent checkup. Following the trail, Joji and Zentsai arrive to find President Abukawa waiting for them. He holds a jar filled with the glowing slugs. With a smirk, he greets them, confirming their arrival. Joji stares in disbelief, shouting Abukawa's name and demanding to know why he possesses the parasites. He casually explains that he was hired to cause a commotion with the creatures, noting that large corporations make many enemies, creating plenty of opportunities for such dirty work. As he speaks, he shatters the jar, releasing the large slime monster within. His true motive becomes clear as he reveals he timed the attack for a day with many visitors. He intended not only to fulfill his contract, but also to teach Joji a lesson for being cheeky, a plan to kill two birds with one stone. Joji and Ohagi watch in horror as a dark power begins to gather around him. With a roar, Abukawa commands the destruction of everything as a massive golem of earth and rock erupts from the ground. Reacting instantly, Joji shouts for Ohagi to transform into her giant form, and the small dragon begins to glow with immense power. The transformed Ohagi unleashes a powerful blast, but it dissipates harmlessly against the golem's rocky exterior. Joji realizes the attack isn't working. He theorizes that the creature's armor is too thick for the magic to penetrate to the main body inside, and that he must find another way. He quickly forms a new plan. Unlike attack magic, his healing magic permeates an entire body. He decides to combine his power with Ohagi's, proposing a combination technique. Focusing intently, he prepares to channel his healing magic through their shared cloud of magical energy, urging Ohagi to execute the maneuver. In her massive dragonoid form, Ohagi responds. She gathers their combined power between her hands, forming a blindingly bright sphere of energy that illuminates the entire area as the golem stands before her. The sphere of energy erupts in a colossal, silent flash, engulfing the battlefield in pure white light. As the dust settles from the battle, Joji looks up in astonishment. A large, gelatinous creature with faint, cat-like ears descends from the crumbling ceiling, making a soft, squishing sound as it floats down towards him. In that moment, a new bond forms. A connection is established. Sometime later, news of President Abukawa's arrest flashes across a television screen. He vehemently denies any wrongdoing, but Uzumaki remarks to Joji that with this, the company will surely go bankrupt. She adds that it's a miracle he even survived the ordeal. Putting the president's fate aside, Uzumaki turns her attention to the large slime creature now hovering affectionately nearby. She asks Joji if he has tamed another one, bewildered by how many he has acquired in such a short time. He sheepishly explains that they just sort of connected. At the park, Chacha and her grandfather express their profound gratitude, thanking Joji for saving them. Chacha gets quite close, promising they will definitely repay this debt. Her forwardness prompts a sharp reaction from Uzumaki, who warns her not to get so lovey-dovey with her senpai. Joji, flustered, tries to brush off their thanks. She responds with surprising intensity, declaring that a jealous, clingy junior on the offensive is perfectly fine by her, staking a claim by stating that Joji belongs to her. The declaration leaves Uzumaki speechless with shock. Joji, observing the exchange, thinks to himself that while Chacha is a good kid, she's also rather scary. After Chacha and her grandfather depart, Joji joyfully holds the slime monster, announcing he's already decided on a name, Kanton. He welcomes Kanton to the family, promising a party when they get home. Uzumaki wryly comments on his naming sense, while Ohagi and Zinsai look on at the newest addition. With a final wave, they are gone. Later, Joji stirs from his sleep, letting out a wide yawn with Ohagi resting peacefully on his chest. His groggy eyes open to find Uzumaki staring at him with a look of utter shock. He barely has time to register her presence before she speaks, her voice filled with urgency. She explains that since they were up all night, she thought he could sleep in, but he absolutely must look outside. Joji, still half asleep, can only look on in confusion. He stepped outside as Uzumaki urged, beginning to say that there was nothing particularly unusual to see. His words caught in his throat. Before him, where there was once just a yard, now stood an enormous crystalline tree, its faceted trunk and branches shimmering brilliantly in the morning sun. It was an exciting and utterly baffling new development. The sight left him, Uzumaki, and even little Ohagi completely speechless. Joji's eyes were wide, a bead of sweat trickling down his face as he stared, mouth agape. Beside him, Uzumaki could only manage a choked sound of utter disbelief. A colossal, crystalline tree erupts from the ground with a blinding flash, its branches glittering. Joji stares in disbelief, wondering if it's a dream. Beside him, Uzumaki points with a trembling hand, recognizing the phenomenon as she exclaims that it can't possibly be in their yard. The entire group, including Zinsai, Kanton, and Ohagi, recoils in shock as the structure continues to grow. The explosive growth transforms the world around them, replacing the familiar yard with a vast, open grassland. The force of the change sends everyone tumbling. Uzumaki cries out as she is thrown to the ground. Sitting up amidst the tall grass, Joji and Uzumaki gaze at the impossible scene. The crystal tree now stands serenely in the distance, the centerpiece of this new landscape. Joji breathes out the unbelievable truth. A dungeon has sprouted at his home. He decides to explore the area for now. From a high vantage point, he surveys the sprawling terrain, a lush grassland with forests and rivers in the distance. He notes with relief that there are no monster shadows, concluding that the area appears to be safe. His exploration is cut short when he suddenly reappears at his starting point. Uzumaki, looking up from her phone, explains that the actual Area 1 can move and is limited and designed to return people to certain points. She mentions having seen articles about dungeons sprouting on private property, but laments her lack of a signal. Joji concedes that even with the limitation, it's still quite spacious. He then voices his main concern to Uzumaki, noting that there were no signs or warnings beforehand. She agrees, finding the suddenness of it all deeply unsettling. Later, inside the dungeon, the group holds a welcome party for Kanton. Ushimaki encourages the slime to eat its fill. Nearby, Ohagi chirps insistently, trying to get Joji's attention, but he dismisses it, preoccupied with trying to catch a cow. The little dragon's chirping grows more frantic. Back in the house, Joji hears the commotion and wonders aloud why Ohagi is using the bathroom outside. His gaze drifts back towards the crystal tree, and a thought begins to form. He realizes Ohagi wasn't just relieving itself at that spot. He connects the events, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. Standing with Ushimaki in the grassy field, he understands the truth. Ohagi was giving birth to a dungeon. The small creature looks up at him, tilting its head in question. Meanwhile, just outside the property, Dr. Kawazu sits in a van, observing a handheld device. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple as he looks up in astonishment. The readings are clear. The magical energy of this new dungeon is an almost perfect match for Ohagi's. Dr. Kawazu explains the gravity of the situation, noting that while all other dungeon entrances in the world are connected by the same magical energy, the tree in Joji's yard possesses a completely unique signature, making it a specimen worthy of academic presentation. Ushimaki confirms the unusual nature of the discovery. Joji, holding Ohagi, wonders why it appeared so suddenly, prompting Ushimaki to realize the dungeon is undoubtedly related to the small creature. Joji turns to Ohagi, asking if it truly created this place. He continues his theory, suggesting that Ohagi's magical energy increases every time Joji tames a new monster, such as Zensai or Cannon. This cumulative power, he posits, may have finally granted Ohagi the ability to create dungeons. Joji processes this startling revelation, staring at the data on the screen. The doctor's thoughts drift, connecting the dots between the sudden increase in magical energy and Ohagi's new ability. He recalls the recent incident with Abukawa, who claimed he was commissioned by an unknown person to cause trouble. With the identity of that person and the source of the parasitic slugs still a complete mystery, the case remains unsolved and deeply concerning. As he worries about their safety, hoping they avoid further incidents, Ushimaki turns to Joji. She asks what his plans are for the new dungeon, mentioning that her research indicates the ownership of a dungeon legally belongs to the landowner. His face lights up with an idea. He explains that since there are no monsters, the dungeon is safe, spacious, and has a wonderful natural environment. While they will need to manage it strictly to prevent monsters from appearing, he declares with excitement that now is the time to make their dreams come true. He throws his fist in the air, announcing his grand plan to create a monster ranch in what he dubs the Ohagi dungeon. Ushimaki questions the name choice as Joji, wasting no time, gets to work. Having already done some light weeding, he begins preparing a small field, acknowledging his beginner status. The manual labor proves more difficult than he anticipated, and he quickly feels like giving up. As Ushimaki watches from the side, Taming the Slime suddenly begins to bubble and expand, startling Joji. To his astonishment, Cannon splits into multiple, smaller slime bodies. Each one forms a farming tool from its own gelatinous substance and begins tilling the soil with incredible efficiency, turning the arduous task into a swift operation. The slimes work in perfect coordination, one even forming a sieve to sift the soil. Inspired by their efforts, Joji grabs his hoe again, declaring he'll do his best too. He shouts in amazement, realizing that with Canton's help, their goal is achievable. He finishes planting seeds in the perfectly prepared rows. Looking over his handiwork, he smiles, already anticipating the day the crops will bear fruit. He returns to his newly planted field only to stop in his tracks, utterly bewildered. The seeds from the previous day have exploded into a patch of enormous, leafy plants. He turns to Ohagi, questioning if it's even possible for them to have grown so much overnight. He consults a book on vegetable growing, speculating that since it's a dungeon, perhaps they're just strange weeds that resemble radishes. As Ohagi chirps curiously, the ground begins to shake. Before his eyes, the radishes uproot themselves, revealing small, white bodies and simple, expressive faces. The creatures are not just sentient, they are mobile. One of the radish monsters launches itself through the air, rocketing past his head with a startling whoosh. He recoils in shock, yelling as the vegetable-like being flies by. He stumbles backward from the sudden movement, landing on the ground as Ohagi looks on. Zensai, the great wolf, calmly steps forward, his gaze fixed on the agitated radish monster. He notes its anger, stating that this situation is not good and identifying the creature as a monster evolved from plant roots. Joji, still on the ground, looks up in confusion, wondering what could have possibly angered it. His question goes unanswered as the entire crop of radish monsters begins to stir. They hop and bounce erratically around the tilled soil, their simple faces conveying a shared sense of agitation. The source of their anger becomes clear. Two of the creatures stop and begin spitting out mouthfuls of dark, clumpy soil, their faces contorted in disgust. Through the lens of his binoculars, Joji observes a herd of deer-like creatures. He recognizes them instantly, the Kawosika. He stands on a rocky outcrop beside a rugged-looking man in a cowboy hat, who shades his eyes and points toward the herd. The man notes the one standing a head taller in the center, identifying it as the leader. Joji confirms that this is the troublesome group they have been sent to deal with, while Ohagi hovers in the air nearby. The scene shifts to the previous day. Joji, Ushimaki, and Jaiba Chacha sit together as Chacha explains the situation. She identifies a specific tea, Hojicha, before stating that a problematic Kawosika is causing them trouble and that she would like Joji to do something about it. The man from the cliffs, Nishima Kenta, owner of the Izakaya, Western, and a dungeon manager, elaborates on his business. He explains that in his dungeon, they make a living by harvesting the horns and milk of the Kawosika. At harvest time, dedicated explorers round up the creatures like sheepdogs herding sheep. Nishima continues, explaining that a recent change in the Kawosika leadership has caused problems. A new leader, one that is big, strong, and has a nasty temper, has started leading the herd to attack, forcing the explorers back and halting the harvest. Jaiba Chacha then reveals that this is why she recommended Joji, praising him as the hero who tamed dragons. She expresses her belief that he can handle the strong Kawosika, and perhaps if they're lucky, a pairing might result in the birth of a mysterious child. Hearing this, Joji steals his resolve, promising to do his best. Back in the present, at Nishima's dungeon, the manager snaps his fingers and formally makes his request. Deal with the Kawosika boss so they can resume harvesting. Joji, taking in the new environment, notes how different dungeons can be. Nishima tells him that once the task is done, he can do as he pleases with the creatures, but first, he needs to make contact. He announces that he will be riding his beloved steed, a massive, armored creature named Gold Rush. He then turns to Joji, asking if he'll be riding the Great Wolf. Holding Taming the Slime, Joji simply replies, yes. He then turns to his companions, calling out to Kanten and Zensai. The Great Wolf turns its head, acknowledging the command. At his command, Kanten begins to transform, its gelatinous body shifting and morphing as Joji calls for it to assume its bike form. The transformation completes, with Kanten becoming a perfectly formed saddle and harness on Zensai's back. Joji sits atop the wolf, Ohagi on his head, and lets out an excited whoa. Nishima looks on, impressed, remarking that he has never seen such a skilled slime and that it must be a rare specimen. He signals the start of their mission with a shout, slamming his fist into the ground as they prepare to charge. The two riders burst across the plains at incredible speed. Nishima, riding his rock horse Gold Rush, expresses his surprise, remarking that it's impressive Joji's wolf can keep up with his steed's run. He then smirks, acknowledging to himself that running is Joji's specialty after all. Aboard Gold Rush, he prepares for his next move. Zensai, meanwhile, runs with a powerful and steady gait, kicking up dust as it effortlessly keeps pace. Without warning, Nishima brings Gold Rush to a crashing halt. The rock horse slams its hoof into the ground, shattering the earth as Nishima shouts at Joji to stop. He is thrown off balance by the sudden stop, looking ahead in confusion as Ohagi, perched on his backpack, also seems startled. His surprise quickly turns to amazement as he realizes what is happening. Nishima is manipulating the earth, using it like a catapult. At the same time, Joji notices a protective barrier of wind swirling around him and Ohagi, who seems to be generating it. They are flung through the air atop a massive chunk of earth. As they soar, Nishima yells frantically for them to stop, complaining that the rough ride is going to make him fall off. Landing amidst the startled herd, Joji is stunned by Nishima's power, realizing he drove off some unseen threat single-handedly. His attention then shifts to the Kawosika, who are clearly being attacked, their aggressive new leader turning to face the threat with a furious glare. Observing the powerful Kawosika monster from a distance, Joji notes its troublesome excellence as a boss, pointing out its leadership skills in calming its agitated companions. He quietly wonders if negotiation is possible, while Nishima Kenta stands beside him, assessing the situation. The creature's head snaps toward them, its eyes narrowed in a menacing glare. A low rumble emanates from its chest as Nishima realizes with a click of his tongue that they've been spotted and his face has been memorized. Its intense gaze initiates a silent standoff, locking eyes with the great wolf, Zensai. The palpable tension feels like a Yakuza stare down. Sensing the escalating danger, Joji steps forward, declaring that he will go. He watches as the confrontation escalates. The Kawosika boss bares its teeth with a low, guttural growl, and Zensai immediately responds in kind, its own snarl filled with aggression. As the situation threatens to erupt into violence, Nishima shouts for Zensai to stop. Joji joins in, pleading for them to be peaceful, desperately trying to prevent a fight as he realizes negotiations have completely broken down. Seeing that their current approach has failed, Nishima advises Joji that they should retreat for now. He suggests they find some food and hold a strategy meeting. As they pull back, a single red apple is left behind on the ground. The apple attracts the attention of a small, young Kawosika from the herd. The child cautiously approaches and takes a bite, its eyes widening with delight at the sweet taste. Watching from a distance, Joji wonders aloud if it wants more. Suddenly, the massive Kawosika boss looms over the child, its face a mask of fury. The young one lets out a frightened squeal as Joji gasps in shock, the leader's immense anger now directed squarely at him. In response to its rage, Joji holds out another apple as an offering. Nishima encourages him, telling him to calm the beast down and ask if it wants to eat the delicious fruit. The boss stares intently at the apple, its aggression momentarily paused. Later, gathered around a campfire, Nishima proposes a new plan, luring the monsters with food. He points out how the Kawosika child devoured the apple and notes that the boss seemed interested as well. Joji, sipping a warm drink, agrees that the strategy might just work. He surveyed the barren wasteland of the dungeon, noting that for herbivores, there was very little to eat. A juicy fruit would be a rare treat for them, he mused, but acknowledged that luring the common Kawosika was meaningless if they couldn't also attract their boss. He dismissed the idea of using common produce, stating that the boss wouldn't even look at ordinary apples. They would need something special, something high quality that monsters would desire. Turning to Joji, he suddenly recalled something, asking about the mandrakes he had supposedly tamed. He explained that mandrakes are plant specialists, capable of using magic to make plants grow. As Joji processed this new information, the realization dawned on him. If they used produce made by the mandrakes, their plan might just work. With newfound resolve, he clasped his hands together, declaring that they absolutely needed the mandrakes' help. He immediately bowed before the three round creatures, pleading for their power to acquire the best fertilizer and create a pasture. With great enthusiasm, he rallied them to grow supreme vegetables that would surely impress the Kawosikas. The process had been difficult. Joji recalled how reluctant the mandrakes were, complaining about being tired. But somehow, he had managed to persuade them, and now he found himself tilling the soil alongside them. As night fell, the mandrakes began their work, dancing in circles around the field while chanting rhythmically. Joji watched, wondering if their strange ritual would continue all night. From a nearby doorway, Uzumaki peeked out, asking if he was pulling an all-nighter to grow vegetables with them. He was startled by her appearance, exclaiming that he couldn't possibly leave the creatures alone and would have to stay overnight. The implication immediately struck Uzumaki. They would be staying in the great outdoors. With the decision made, Joji declared that they had no choice but to camp. A small, portable grill was promptly set up on the ground. He watched, surprised, as Uzumaki excitedly unpacked a full set of camping gear. When he asked where she got it all, she explained with a blush that she had become hooked on a camping anime and bought everything. But this was the first chance she'd ever had to use it. Joji examines a small, portable grill set with an amused expression as Uzumaki's eyes sparkle with excitement. She excitedly rattles off possibilities for their first meal: barbecue, hot pot, roasted marshmallows, or even curry noodles. He clarifies that it's not a coin box, but a campfire set, which only fuels her delight. Having set up their camp, Uzumaki hands Joji a warm cup of coffee. He accepts it gratefully while lounging comfortably on Kanton, the slime monster, who has shaped itself into a chair. Ohagi sips its own drink nearby as Joji remarks on how delicious the coffee is. He savors the moment, reflecting internally that this is the slow, peaceful life he has always longed for. Camping in the great outdoors without a single electric light, with only the crackling campfire for sound. Nearby, Uzumaki happily roasts a marshmallow, offering more to a delighted Ohagi, who hovers in the air with its own skewer. The entire group, Joji, Uzumaki, the great wolf, Ohagi, and the small mandrakes, sits together around the warm glow of the fire, enjoying the serene quiet of the night under a vast, star-filled sky. By morning, the cost of their peaceful night becomes clear. Joji, looking at his phone, sees that their sudden endurance stream lasted all night. He and the mandrak monsters are completely exhausted, collapsed on the ground. Despite his fatigue, he thanks his online supporters, vowing that he will make this plan succeed. He pushes through his exhaustion, admitting that it's been a while since he pulled an all-nighter and that it was tough. With renewed determination, he declares it's time for the important vegetables. With that, a crate brimming with vibrant, freshly harvested produce is brought forward, showcasing corn, tomatoes, peppers, and a large pumpkin. The aroma of the special vegetables reaches its intended audience, a herd of Kawosika. The deer-like monsters react with intense excitement, exclaiming over the fresh, flavorful vegetables produced by the mandrakes. The lead Kawosika swallows hard, its desire palpable. Nishima Kenta and Joji stand before the herd, presenting the bounty. Kenta makes the first move, telling the creatures that if they cooperate, all of this food can be theirs. He lays out the terms clearly. He wants the Kawosika to stop attacking humans and to cooperate with milk and horn harvesting. In return, he promises a steady supply of food. He appeals to their logic, stating that food is essential for the herd's growth, making it a fair deal. His offer hung in the air, met by a low, guttural sound from the Kawosika leader, who eyed the proposal with stern suspicion. The leader's stern gaze, however, wavered as he glanced at one of his young. The small creature's eyes were wide and pleading, drool dripping in anticipation of the feast. That sight was enough to break his resolve. With a mighty roar, the leader signaled their agreement, and Nishima Kenta threw his fists into the air, shouting in triumph. The deal was struck. The Kawosika would cooperate. Several days later, Joji greeted his online audience with a cheerful wave, running through a now peaceful and expanded pasture. He announced that a lot had happened and that he had new friends to introduce, gesturing to the tamed cow monsters and Kawosika grazing nearby. He explained that one of the Kawosika, a curious child of the herd's leader, had even come to live with them, and noted how delicious its milk was. He continued his tour, explaining to his viewers that with more friends, the farm had become much livelier. The new additions were helping with making compost and providing milk, and there was so much more they planned to do. With Ohagi, the great wolf, and a Kawosika by his side, he enthusiastically told his viewers that their monster ranch was just getting started. He promised to keep them updated on its development, and, after asking them to subscribe, waved a final goodbye. Elsewhere, a hand held a smartphone displaying the end of Joji's successful stream. The unseen viewer remarked with a hint of disdain that Joji had it good, playing around, taking it easy, and making money seemed to be the best life. The phone belonged to a group of aspiring content creators. The apparent leader, a man with blonde hair, declared that if they wanted to go viral, they needed to feature monsters. He dismissed their current videos as lacking impact, insisting they needed to do something more extreme. Another suggested they investigate a mountain rumored to have mysteries and demons. The group stood on an overpass, their leader rallying them with a new goal: to aim for the top and join the ranks of popular streamers, just like someone named George. Unseen by them, a furry ear twitched nearby, having overheard their entire conversation. At his desk, Joji, wearing a headset, begins a casual live stream for the Ohagi channel. He greets his viewers and explains that his new, detailed stream layout was created by a talented junior VTuber. He tells his audience to wait a moment as the live video feed from the ranch prepares to appear on screen. The feed goes live, showing a sunny day at the ranch. Joji announces that the cameraman for the day is Ohagi, who could be seen flying with a mini camera. He directs the viewer's attention to the slime monster, Canton, who is handling a bucket of compost, reminding everyone that they're checking on its progress after recently welcoming the Kawosika. The camera then focuses on a large pile of successfully made compost. A mandrake monster rests blissfully atop the warm, soft mound, letting out a contented yawn. Ohagi observes that the fermented compost doesn't smell and that he's looking forward to the next harvest. This peaceful scene is shattered by a sudden, aggressive lunge. The great wolf, Zentsai, charges at one of the small cow monsters, Cafe Ole, sending it tumbling backward. Ohagi, still filming, is startled by the abrupt display of force. Watching the feed from his room, Joji explains to his viewers that Zentsai is training Cafe Ole at the request of the boss Kawosika. With the ranch's current state shown, he announces that it's time to move on to the main topic of the stream. He asks his audience for their opinions on what the ranch is missing, proposing they decide on the next goal together. As comments flood in suggesting a barn, a storehouse, or housing for the monsters, Joji considers the logistics, noting that construction would require contractors and more manpower. He ultimately agrees with the consensus that a barn is the best choice. His planning is abruptly cut short when his apartment door flies open. Ushimaki bursts in, shouting his name in a panic and crying that something is wrong. Joji is completely taken aback, startled by her sudden appearance. She stands in his doorway, clearly distressed. Still live, Joji quickly turns to his monitor and apologizes to his viewers, announcing that a problem has arisen and he must end the stream immediately. With a click of his mouse, he cuts the feed. The reason for her panic is revealed. Two small children are at the door. A young boy, crying, holds a small, limp cat-like monster in his arms. He pleads for help, crying out that the little creature is going to die. He takes the small creature into his hands, gently stroking its head. A wave of relief washes over him as he confirms it's still breathing, and he promises to heal it right away. As his hands begin to glow, he examines the body and finds bruising all over, a clear sign that the injuries were not accidental, but deliberately inflicted. He asks the children if the injured cat monster belongs to them. The red-headed girl clarifies that it does not. They found it lying on its side by the river on their way to school. She then asks if he can use healing magic. Ushimaki, looking concerned, adds that she has heard rumors about that area becoming a hangout for dangerous people, implying the creature's injury might not have been an accident. Upon hearing this, the children's faces light up with hope. The girl thanks him profusely, relieved. The blonde boy exclaims that they believed he could save the kitty, and the dark-haired boy adds that he watches the Ohagi channel with his mother, recognizing Joji. He blushes, flustered at being called uncle by elementary school kids when he's only in his 20s. Ushimaki finds his reaction adorable, but Joji quickly composes himself, thanking the children for relying on him. With the creature's injuries healed, the children head off to school, promising to return later. Joji suggests to Ushimaki that they should try to find its owner, noticing it's wearing something akin to clothes. As he speaks, the cat monster itself speaks up, thanking him for saving it. Its words send a shockwave through the room. Joji and Ushimaki stare, utterly stunned that the creature can talk. The monster proudly stands on the table and introduces itself. It is Sable, a Kate Sith, and it has come specifically to meet Joji. Before Joji can fully process this revelation, Sable prostrates itself on the floor, desperately begging him to save its kind. A short while later, Sable is clean and dressed in a small sweatshirt. Joji remarks with a smile that his old preschool clothes are a perfect fit. The Kate Sith is overjoyed, thanking him for the bath and the new clothes. It has already made itself at home, cheerfully announcing that dinner is ready. Just then, Uzumaki and Ohagi return from a trip to the dungeon, and Ohagi floats into the room, stopping short with a surprised cry at the sight of the new creature. As Joji and his companions share a meal, Sable the Kate, Sith brings up a serious matter. He explains that his kind are in big trouble in the dungeon where they live, causing Joji to pause mid-bite, his expression turning serious. He elaborates that monsters called kobolds, who resemble stocky, dog-like creatures, share their dungeon. For reasons unknown, some of these kobolds have suddenly become violent, attacking Kate's Siths and even normal kobolds. Worse, their numbers are steadily increasing, putting his clan in a real pinch. Joji processes this, asking if it's just their aggression that has changed. Sable confirms this is correct, adding that their physical strength has also increased, causing them to become much more muscular. The Kate's Sith's desperation grows as he pleads for help, fearing his clan will be wiped out. Joji quickly tries to calm him, insisting that for now, he needs to eat and recover his strength. Taking a bite of the food, Sable's eyes widen in appreciation of the crunchy, juicy flavor. He marvels at the perfect seasoning, eagerly asking to learn the recipe. Uzumaki expresses her shock that Sable can cook. The Kate Sith explains that many of his kind are quite dexterous and enjoy cooking, a fact Joji notes as he observes Sable's skillful use of chopsticks. Her excitement boiling over, Uzumaki loudly declares that her senpai will solve all of Sable's problems and insists the Kate Sith should join them. Joji quickly tries to quiet her, whispering that he's not scouting for an idle agency and that there's a lot of preparation involved. She laments her own workload, cooking, cutting ingredients, and video editing, saying she'd be running home to a wife by now if she had one. Joji apologizes for the burden he's placed on her. Moved by their exchange, Sable tearfully thanks them and begs for their help once more. Joji looks at his companions and agrees they can't ignore the situation. With his decision made, Joji begins planning. He asks for the dungeon's location, and Sable points to a spot in the mountains on a map. Realizing it will be a long trip, Joji notes they'll need to prepare thoroughly, including snacks. He offers Sable a cat treat, which the creature accepts. The moment he tastes it, his eyes fill with a cosmic wonder. He is utterly overwhelmed, declaring the snack to be paradise and thanking the world tree for the encounter. Joji looks on, taken aback by the intense reaction, and asks if it's really that good. Later, as the group travels on Zinsai's back, Joji asks Sable if he came to their area by train. The Kate Sith confirms this, explaining he was investigating outside the dungeon for his clan, pretending to be a normal cat to learn human language. He recalls that while many humans were kind, some were not, remembering unpleasant moments of being poked and prodded. He asks Sable if his serious injury was truly caused by humans. The Kate Sith explains that while searching for help, he heard rumors about Joji-san, a famous person known for taming many monsters and resolving major incidents. As they continue their journey, Sable announces their arrival. Joji is surprised when the Kate Sith mentions a sacred feeling in the air, something Ohagi seems to sense as well. Sable, in turn, is amazed to see a dragon accompanying them, something he hadn't expected. The group looks up at their destination, a large, dilapidated hotel overgrown with foliage, standing ominously at the end of a path blocked by warning signs. Joji voices his apprehension, asking with uncertainty if this is truly where they need to go. The Great Wolf beside him also appears hesitant. Their hesitation is interrupted by the sudden appearance of an old man. He addresses Joji, guessing he's another youngster drawn by viral videos about Oni. The man warns them that when night falls, bloodthirsty ghouls emerge to attack and devour any outsiders. The Great Wolf reacts to the warning with visible tension, sweat beading on his brow. He growls a low warning to Joji, advising him to head back down the mountain if he values his life. Despite this, Sable tries to reassure Joji, claiming the dungeon is just beyond the hotel and that he's never seen any Oni in the area. Joji looks on, unconvinced as the strange old man shuffles away, a peculiar and unsettling expression on his face. The group proceeds into the abandoned building. The interior is a scene of utter ruin, with the floor collapsed into a massive hole in the center of the room. Joji stares in shock, questioning Sable if this place is truly safe. The relative quiet is shattered as the Great Wolf suddenly lets out a low, guttural growl. He senses a hidden presence, warning the others to be on guard because they are being watched. Joji and Ohagi are startled by the sudden alert. Joji, with Ohagi on his back and Sable at his side, is suddenly confronted by three men in the ruins. Their leader, a blond man, calls out, asking what's wrong. He remarks that he heard a noise and thought it might be the rumored demon. One of his companions, a man with glasses, recognizes Joji and his baby dragon, noting he's seen them somewhere before. His recognition sparks excitement. The blonde leader realizes he's stumbled upon a celebrity in a monster-infested area, declaring it genuine content. He frantically orders his crew to start filming, identifying Joji as the famous streamer, George. Joji looks on, unimpressed by the sudden attention. As Joji watches the man, Sable begins to tremble violently, tugging on his pant leg for attention. The small cat monster stammers out that those are the very humans who bullied him. In the distance, the three streamers stand together, their intentions unclear. The revelation hangs in the air. The blonde streamer points, his face a mask of shock as he shouts, "The cat talked?" Joji is equally stunned, his eyes wide with disbelief at Sable's sudden ability to speak. Realizing Sable is a monster only excites the streamers more, seeing it as even better content. But the small cat stands his ground, planting his paws firmly and shouting defiantly for them not to touch Joji. His protective cry fuels Joji's anger. He steps forward, confronting the blonde leader directly. He demands to know how they could do such a cruel thing to Sable. The streamer smirks, telling Joji not to get in their way and questioning if he, as a fellow streamer, truly doesn't understand the hustle. He dismisses the accusation with a laugh, proclaiming that it's all about the numbers. As his companions film, he explains that controversy and going viral are everything. The more extreme the content, the better it sells, justifying their cruelty as a legitimate market strategy. The streamer then demands Joji hand over Sable, claiming they found him first and that a talking cat is guaranteed to go viral. He believed Joji's own video would have gotten more views by now, but this new development is far more valuable. He orders Joji to stop, warning him not to touch their prey. Changing his approach, he leans in with a sly grin and proposes a collaboration stream. He argues it's a win-win, as they'll both get more views. But Joji's face is a mask of fury. He shouts that he absolutely refuses to work with scum and vows they won't lay a single finger on Sable. His defiant refusal amuses the streamer. The man scoffs, saying he's already thought of a good video title: "We beat up a self-righteous, hypocritical, famous streamer." With that, he clenches his fist, preparing to launch an attack on Joji. He lunged forward, but before his attack could land, Ohagi unleashed a powerful blast of concussive energy from its mouth. The force of the attack sent the streamer leader and his two companions flying backward, knocking them violently to the ground. Stunned by the unexpected counterattack, the leader looked up in confusion, wondering aloud what the sound was. He questioned if it could be the demon's voice an old woman had mentioned, realizing with dawning horror that she might have been telling the truth. Across from them, Joji stood calmly, flanked by a growling great wolf and a vigilant Ohagi. His brief moment of realization turned to sheer terror as the great wolf loomed over them, a massive, growling silhouette in the darkness. Screaming, the streamers scrambled to their feet and fled into the night. With the immediate threat gone, Joji turned his attention to the small cat monster, asking if Sable was all right and urging that they leave before the others returned. He knelt by the small creature, who let out a sigh of relief. Sable confirmed it had calmed down and thanked Joji for his concern, adding that its own dungeon was right there. Joji, still worried, told it not to push itself. Now on its own feet, Sable gestured towards a large tree and invited them in. He explained that while the entrance looked like an ordinary tree, it was actually disguised with magic. Following the creature's lead, Joji and his companions passed through the magical barrier. Inside, they found not a dark cave, but a vibrant, sunlit jungle teeming with lush foliage. Joji looked around in awe, realizing this was the dungeon. He marveled at the incredible sight, exclaiming that it was like a real jungle. Sable confirmed that there were large roots everywhere and cautioned him to watch his step. As Joji took a step forward, his foot landed on something that cracked loudly under the pressure. The sound drew immediate attention. From the surrounding foliage, a group of armed, dog-like warriors, kobolds, emerged, surrounding Joji and his companions. With spears raised, they stared down the intruders. Joji, caught completely off guard, could only wonder who these new figures were. Deep within the dungeon, a group of armed, canine-like kobolds stands guard. Their leader, gripping a crude spear, snarls at the newcomers, demanding to know who they are. The kobolds let out a collective, guttural roar. In response, Ohagi, held in Joji's arms, unleashes a blinding flash of light and a surprisingly powerful roar of its own. The light fades to reveal Joji hanging upside down, held by his ankle in the jaws of the great white wolf Sensei. The small Kate's Sith, Sable, waves his paws frantically, trying to de-escalate the situation as the kobolds continue to growl. His frantic cries give the kobolds pause. Their aggression shifts to confusion as they begin to wonder if these intruders are not enemies after all. Sable continues his desperate attempts to communicate, while Sensei lets out a low, warning growl. The kobold leader points a clawed finger at the inverted Joji, his voice a low growl. He identifies Joji as a human and asks if he truly intends to save the kobolds. Joji's eyes widen, stunned that the creature can speak. Sable quickly interjects, explaining to the skeptical leader that these are the talking kobolds he'd heard about, a group that hasn't gone berserk. He vouches for Joji, calling him an ally, but the leader's grip on his spear tightens, his distrust palpable. His suspicion hardens into an accusation. The leader levels his spear at Joji, accusing him of using the Kate Sith to deceive them and demanding to know if he plans them harm. Sable frantically denies it, insisting Joji isn't that kind of person. Still hanging upside down, Joji calmly requests to be put down. He explains his purpose. He has a theory about the cause of the rampages that have afflicted so many, and he cannot ignore it if the same thing is happening here. The kobold leader listens intently. Suddenly, Sensei releases his grip. Joji plummets, screaming in terror, only to be caught at the last second by a vine-like tether. Safely on the ground, he hears the leader's final warning. If any trouble arises from this, neither Joji nor the Kate Sith will be forgiven. Tears well up in Sable's eyes as he turns to Joji, pleading for him to forgive the kobolds' hostility. He explains their desperation. Their families and friends have suddenly turned violent, attacking their own comrades, and they live in constant fear of being the next to go berserk without knowing why. The small cat-like monster announced their arrival. Joji, following close behind with the great wolf, pondered his next move. He understood the monster's wariness of a human suddenly appearing and knew he needed to earn their trust to understand the situation fully. He looked around at a seemingly unremarkable patch of woods, confused. Sable, however, gestured proudly, declaring this to be their village and stating their first step was to talk to the elder. As he continued to see nothing but trees, Ohagi, perched on his backpack, chirped and pointed skyward. Sable echoed the sentiment, urging Joji to look up. His gaze shifted upward, and his eyes widened in utter astonishment. He was met with the sight of an entire village nestled high in the forest canopy, a complex of wooden structures built among the massive branches. Sable formally welcomed him to the home of the Kate Sith clan. He murmured in amazement, never having imagined such a place. Nearby, 2 other Kate Sith lounged on a railing, confirming that they love climbing trees and that high places are no problem for them. Sunlight streamed through the canopy, illuminating the remarkable treetop architecture as Sable and the Great Wolf looked on with quiet pride. Sable then explained that the village had not been attacked so far. The cat-like monster noted that the kobolds aren't skilled climbers, which is how Sable and the others had managed to escape them. Joji listened, understanding the strategic advantage of their elevated home. The group soon arrived before a small structure. Sable called out, announcing their return to the elder. Joji peered inside, surprised to see a very large, fluffy, and yet remarkably small Kate Sith. The elder responded with a soft noise, which Sable translated as a warm welcome and a promise of full cooperation. Since he couldn't fit inside, Joji introduced himself as McKee's Joji from the entrance, though he couldn't help but wonder if their acceptance was truly this simple. Joji considers the troubling situation, admitting they don't understand the most important parts. Beside him, Ohagi and Sable rest, while outside, the great wolf Zentsai is on house-sitting duty, sleeping soundly at the base of a large tree. As he ponders, Sable summarizes what little they know. The number of berserk kobolds has grown to over half the total population. These berserk individuals don't harm each other, but the cause of their violent outbursts and the whereabouts of the remaining pack are unknown. Joji asks with a hint of frustration if this is truly all they've managed to figure out. He then voices a suspicion, wondering if the slugs could be the cause, perhaps capable of doing something to Ohagi as well. He recalls hearing strange growling sounds from the ruins, which now seem highly suspicious. Sable adds that they haven't seen the slugs in the dungeon recently, speculating they may have moved outside. Joji concludes they need a way to deal with all the berserk kobolds at once, as fighting them one by one is too difficult. He laments their lack of information and magical energy, noting that Ohagi can only maintain a giant form for a short time. Furthermore, trying to get information from the remaining, wary kobolds would be a challenge. His strategic thoughts are shattered by a sudden intrusion. A frantic Kate Sith bursts into the room, shouting loudly and startling Joji, Ohagi, and Sable from their discussion. The panicked scout cries out Joji's name, declaring that something terrible has happened. Joji, now on high alert, asks for details. The scout explains that it's an urgent report from their comrades stationed at the dungeon entrance. He relays the dire news. A kobold child wandered outside the dungeon, all alone. The scouts try to follow but quickly lost sight of it. Realizing the child could encounter the berserk kobolds, Joji knows they must find it immediately before something terrible happens. Without a moment's hesitation, Joji leaps on his Zentsai's back, with Ohagi perched before him. He calls out to the Great Wolf, asking if he can track the child's scent. Zentsai responds with a powerful bark, ready for the hunt. The scout confirms that word has been sent to the other kobolds. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the object of their search has already been found. The leader of the antagonistic streamers smirks, laughing about how coming back was the right decision. Before him, a small, battered kobold lies defeated on the ground. He complains that an old man got in their way and was a pain. He looms over the whimpering creature, ordering it to stand up. Turning to his companion, he suggests a title for their stream, Public Execution of a Monster Dog, confident it will get them views. He then grabs the terrified kobold's jaw, prying it open and promising to make it work a lot more. He and his companion reel back in surprise as an unexpected group bursts onto the scene. Joji, flanked by the small cat-like creature Sable, orders them to get away from the kobold child. Floating beside him, Ohagi lets out a low, menacing growl. His face contorted with rage, the streamer leader snarls at Joji for constantly getting in his way, accusing him of never learning and continuing his foolish interference. Meanwhile, Sable rushes to the terrified kobold child, reassuring it that they have come to the rescue. His fury boiling over, he declares that he no longer cares about the views. He screams that he can't take it anymore and vows that he won't be satisfied until he has beaten Joji to a pulp. Before he can act on his threat, a massive, snarling wolf appears before him. Zentsai, eyes glowing with feral intensity, interrupts the streamer's tirade with a single, guttural promise of death. The great wolf lunges, its powerful paw striking the ground where the streamer stood just a moment before, shattering the stone floor with explosive force. As the dust settles, a new horror emerges. The small kobold child has transformed into a hulking, monstrous beast, its massive form towering over everyone. Joji and his companions can only stare in shock as one of the terrified streamers screams that a demon has appeared. Joji realizes with dawning horror that this monstrous creature is the berserk kobold, confirming his suspicion that the slugs are the cause of the rampage. Unfazed by the transformation, the streamer leader raises his weapon, ready to strike the beast down. Seeing the imminent attack, Joji shouts to Ohagi, placing his trust in the small dragon. In response, Ohagi's eyes glow brightly, and it unleashes a powerful blast of crackling energy directly at the berserk kobold. Joji stares at the monstrous berserk kobold, a realization dawning on him. Sable cries out that this must be the creature, and Joji concludes that the parasitic slugs are the cause of its rampage. Placing his trust in his companion, he shouts, "I'm counting on you, Ohagi." In response, Ohagi swells with power, its body crackling with a brilliant, purifying light. It transforms into its powerful dragonoid form and unleashes a massive beam of energy, striking the berserk kobold head-on. The blast engulfs the creature, which roars in agony. Through the light, Joji spots the wriggling slug on its body and resolves to purify it completely. Nearby, Sable whimpers in terror at the violent spectacle. As the light subsides, a small kobold child stumbles toward the reeling monster. Joji gasps, shouting for the child to get away quickly as he reaches out a hand to stop it. His warning goes unheeded. The little kobold, tears streaming down its face, clings to the leg of the larger one, which has ceased its roaring and now whimpers softly. Joji watches, sensing that something is wrong. The creature is no longer hostile. Before he can react further, the large kobold dissolves into shadows and vanishes completely, causing the small child to tumble to the ground. Joji stares in disbelief, wondering if it simply ran away. In the sudden quiet, the small kobold sits on the ground and cries. An adult kobold and another child cautiously approach, their expressions filled with concern. The adult kobold then turns to Joji, who now holds the reverted Ohagi. Gesturing toward a nearby cave, the creature invites them in, explaining that it is the entrance to their village. Joji looks on, surprised by the offer. He leads them inside to a gathering of his people. The kobold gestures for Joji and his companions to sit, first offering his gratitude for saving their comrade. He adds that he is simply glad everyone is safe. He then introduces himself as the leader of the Kukin clan. He admits that he does not trust humans, but having seen the dragon's power, he formally requests their help to save the kobolds. Joji agrees, confident that with Ohagi's power, they can manage, noting that the previous purification just needed one more push. The clan leader reveals a painful truth. The berserk kobold was the father of the very child they had just saved. Joji understands now why the young one had fearlessly approached the raging beast. Sable adds that the child had been crying out, pleading for his father to wake up. He continues, his voice heavy, explaining that it's not just this one family. Many of his comrades have succumbed to the same fate, leaving their loved ones behind to weep for their return. Overwhelmed by the clan's suffering, the leader bows his head, admitting they cannot face this threat alone and pleading for their help. Joji, his expression hardening with resolve, accepts the plea, promising to do everything in his power. He immediately begins to strategize, asking if all the afflicted kobolds are located in the nearby ruins. The leader confirms that while the ruins seem to be the epicenter, the berserk creatures are scattered throughout the buildings and the surrounding forest, their exact locations unknown. Joji realizes that repeatedly using Ohagi's powerful purification ability will be a significant challenge. He considers the tactical problem further, noting that if they manage to purify a few, the others will likely become cautious and harder to approach. He asks if there's a way to gather them all in one place, but the leader dismisses this as difficult since the creatures are not moving as a group. The need for some kind of bait comes to Joji's mind. His train of thought is interrupted by a soft coo from Ohagi. Joji remembers it's time for the little dragon's meal and apologizes, reaching into his bag for the snacks he brought. At the mention of food, Sable's ears perk up in excitement, wondering aloud if it could be a particular delicacy. He offers one of the snacks, a packaged treat, to the kobold leader as well, who is immediately struck by its powerful, delicious aroma. Sable issues a dramatic warning, telling the leader to brace himself, for the food is so tasty he might faint from sheer pleasure. Joji waves off the cat's theatrics. The leader cautiously takes a bite. His eyes snap open in astonishment. The rich aroma is matched by a flavor that melts in his mouth, sending a tingling sensation through his brain and a tremor of pure joy through his entire body. He recoils, clutching the treat as if it were forbidden treasure. He shouts that something so delicious shouldn't even exist, that its flavor is so dangerously addictive it could cause riots. He confesses an overwhelming urge to abandon everything just for another taste. Ohagi nods in fervent agreement, while Joji looks on, stunned by the extreme reaction. As the kobold leader struggles against the overwhelming craving, Joji stares at the snack in his own hand. A realization dawns on him. Seeing the powerful effect of the too delicious treat, he wonders if he should try it himself. Recognizing he may have just found the perfect bait, he watched as the kobold leader, filled with newfound hope, held the package of snacks aloft like a sacred relic. The leader roared with conviction, declaring that this was it, the ambrosia that would allow them to save the kobolds. The sheer absurdity of the situation struck Joji, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. Their grand salvation, the incredibly addictive substance, was nothing more than common dog treats. With a final clap, Joji dusts off his hands, his task complete. He looks over the empty boxes, satisfied that all the supplies have been used. The first phase of the operation is a success. He kneels on a mat inside the cavern as Sable announces their own preparations are finished. Joji welcomes the group back, praising their hard work. Holding up a ration pack, he declares that this will be the key to saving the kobolds. Now, all they can do is hope it goes well. The kobold leader then approaches him, stating that with the operation set for tomorrow, there is nothing more to be done today. He invites Joji to stay for the night. Surprised, Joji glances outside, only now realizing that dusk has already fallen. He readily agrees, acknowledging that they will need an early start anyway. The kobold leader is pleased by his acceptance and announces that it is time for a feast, much to Joji's delight. The promise of a feast materializes as a large bonfire is lit outside the cave entrance, its flames crackling and rising into the starry night sky. The celebration is lively, with Sable and another Sith enthusiastically grilling skewers of food over the fire, letting out cheerful cries. Standing atop a rock to address the gathered monsters, Sable rallies the troops. He declares that after all their hard work, their days of fearing the mysterious violent outbursts will end tomorrow. The kobolds and Sith will join forces to reclaim peace and their friends. The rousing speech captivates the audience. Joji sits comfortably among them, leaning against the great wolf's massive form as he listens. Inspired, the kobold leader and Sable raise their mugs high, leading the crowd in a roaring cheer to toast the success of the coming operation. The entire allied force of Sith and kobolds gathers around the great bonfire, their spirits united and morale high as they celebrate on the eve of their decisive battle. At the celebratory feast, Joji takes a bite of grilled meat, his eyes widening in delight at the delicious flavor. Around him, the monsters share in the meal. The great wolf offers thanks, while Sable and Ohagi express their own happy approval. He observes the efficient cooperation between the species. Just as Sable had said, the Sith are not only excellent cooks but also skilled at detailed work. The kobolds, on the other hand, leverage their great stamina for all the physical labor, having divided the roles perfectly. As he continues eating, Sable approaches and asks if he is enjoying himself. The small cat-like monster is overjoyed, explaining that this is the first time they've ever had a feast with the kobolds and that seeing everyone having fun makes them so happy. The kobold leader confirms it is a first for them as well. The kobold leader elaborates, stating that while their species have lived alongside the Sith, they have always kept a certain distance. But now, facing a common problem, they are finally working together as true comrades. He expresses his hope that from this day forward, they can all get along well. Sable firmly agrees. Watching them, Joji feels a sense of optimism, believing this shared crisis will allow the two groups to overcome their differences and deepen their bonds. His thoughts, however, soon turn to a lingering threat, the troublesome streamers. He recalls how they fled in fear from the berserk kobolds, but now that they know about the existence of peaceful monsters like Sable, he wonders if they will simply let the matter rest. His mind conjures a worst-case scenario: the monsters captured and caged. If information about them were sold to a TV station, they would be exposed to public curiosity, hunted, and sought out. He clenches his fist, questioning what he can do to protect them. He knows there are many people in the world like President Abukawa, who would see a dragon not as a friend, but as an opportunity to rake in money while the creature does all the work. Later that night, the weight of his anxiety manifests as a nightmare. While Ohagi and the slime monster sleep peacefully beside him, Joji is tormented by a terrifying vision of a monstrous, enraged Ohagi lunging at him, forcing a cry from his lips as he sleeps. Outside a derelict, multi-story building under the night sky, faint squeaking sounds emanate from within. The source of the noise is two small, white mice. Their squeaks are cut short as a massive, dark, wolf-like creature looms over them. With a violent snap of its jaws, it obliterates them in a spray of blood, panting heavily afterward. This berserk kobold is a whirlwind of agony and instinct. Its mind screams with pain and an overwhelming hunger. Thoughts of killing, destroying, and consuming humans flash through its consciousness, a desperate plea for help lost in the storm of its feral urges. Its heightened senses suddenly catch a new, delicious smell wafting from a nearby bag. The scent is intoxicating, but it isn't enough. A deep craving for more immediately takes hold. The creature lunges, tearing into a piece of meat. The flavor is exquisite, far too good, igniting an even more ferocious desire to keep eating. As it devours the bait, the potent aroma drifts through the dilapidated halls, drawing the attention of other, smaller kobolds who are irresistibly pulled toward the promise of meat. The berserk kobold becomes fiercely possessive. It glares toward the source of the scent, its mind singularly focused. It wants to eat, and it will not share with anyone. Its possessiveness is futile. The other kobolds swarm the food, and a chaotic frenzy erupts as they all fight over the meal, growling that it's all theirs. From a hidden vantage point, the small Sith, Sable, watches the chaos unfold and whispers that the time is now. On that signal, a massive, gelatinous slime monster surges forward, engulfing the entire pack of distracted kobolds. They roar in shock and terror as the creature's body envelopes them completely. The trap was a success. Sable, nibbling on a snack, declares that the kobolds fell for it completely, lured by the addictive feast. Standing beside the Sith, the imposing leader of the Kukin kobold clan confirms the plan worked. The bait had been prepared by first gathering a large amount of meat and smearing it with various treats that Joji had collected from nearby stores. He lays out the initial steps of their strategy. First, they will scatter deliciously seasoned meat throughout the ruins where the berserk kobolds are hiding. The irresistible aroma and taste will captivate the frenzied creatures, making them desperate for more. Once the kobolds are drawn out and gathered by the scent, a large amount of meat will be prepared in a single location to consolidate them. With the plan set, Sable turns to the imposing kobold leader, declaring that he is counting on him now. As the final phase begins, Sable calls out from below to Joji in Ohagi. High above, Joji grips Ohagi's horns and urges the small dragon to unleash its full power. A brilliant light begins to concentrate in Ohagi's mouth. Together, they streak through the air, projecting a massive wave of pure, radiant energy down upon the ruins below. The light that washes over the area is not destructive, but instead carries a gentle, soothing warmth. Enveloped in this benevolent radiance, the berserk kobold's monstrous rage begins to subside, replaced by a single, powerful longing to go home and return to its family. The light fades, revealing the once frenzied kobolds now lying peacefully asleep on the ground. The kobold leader watches as Ohagi, now in its powerful dragonoid form, descends. Perched on its shoulder, Sable cheers in triumph, shouting that they did it. His celebration is well-earned. The creatures, no longer consumed by their berserk fury, are calm and still, their expression serene in a deep, collective slumber. With the battle concluded, the kobold leader weeps with relief, embracing one of the small puppies. Joji and the transformed Ohagi watch as he declares that everyone can now return to their families. Nearby, the defeated streamers are being rounded up, their leader shouting for the authorities to get rid of the monsters they claim are violent. His shouts attract the attention of two police officers who have just arrived on the scene. The female officer's eyes widen in recognition, confirming that it is indeed McKee's Joji. Her partner stares in disbelief at the massive dragon, realizing it's the same creature they encountered before, now grown to an immense size. They approach not with suspicion, but with admiration. The female officer gushes that she's his #1 fan and always watches his streams, thrilled to see the real Ohagi-chan. The male officer thanks Joji for his help during their previous encounter. Held in custody, the streamer leader seethes with rage, demanding to know what they're chatting about. The male officer turns his attention to the captive, stating that the situation is quite different from what he was told. He gestures to a small, harmless kobold puppy, questioning where the big, muscular dog monster he heard about is. The streamer insists they are still monsters, but the officer seems unconvinced, acknowledging the rules about eliminating wild monsters, but noting these appear to be harmless puppies. Ignoring the dispute for a moment, Joji turns to the kobold leader and Sable. He extends an invitation, asking if they and their people would like to come to his home. He admits it might be a cramped situation, but he would be grateful for their help. Sable eagerly accepts on behalf of all the Sith, declaring they will be delighted, especially with the promise of treats. The kobold leader also agrees, pledging that his clan will not forget this kindness and will prove useful. As they speak, the officers conclude their discussion. Since the monsters now belong to Joji and are tamed, they are exempt from extermination, much to the streamer's shock. The female officer's friendly demeanor shifts. She leans towards the streamer leader, noting his resemblance to a troublesome streamer from recent reports. She reminds him that it's a violation for ordinary citizens to hunt monsters and cheerfully suggests they all take a trip down to the station. As she and her partner lead the group away, she waves back to Joji, encouraging him and Ohagi to keep up the good work on their stream. Joji watches them go, pondering if the matter is truly settled. Beside him, Sable and a kobold puppy cheer, agreeing that the streamers got what they deserved. Later, Joji is broadcasting live from the open bed of a truck, announcing his location to the viewers of Ohagi channel. He is surrounded by his monster companions. Ohagi, now back in its small form, sits on his lap alongside Sable, while the kobold leader, the great wolf, the slime, and a new rabbit-like creature ride with him. A notice indicates they have received special permission for this mode of transport. The truck comes to a stop, and Joji announces their arrival. The rear gate opens to reveal a village, square teeming with Kate's Sith and kobold puppies. The crowd erupts in cheers, overjoyed at the sight of all the new fluffy creatures. Sable, at the edge of the truck bed, looks out with pure delight. As the monsters settle in, Joji sees off the dungeon manager, Nishima Kinta, thanking him for generously providing 3 trucks on such short notice. Nishima, smiling from the driver's seat, replies that if Joji truly wants to thank him, he can share some of his mandrake brand vegetables after the next good harvest. Nearby, Ohagi, in her powerful dragonoid form, is completely overwhelmed by an entirely different sight, her face flushed in sheer, flustered delight. Her reaction is caused by the massive crowd of small, fluffy kobolds and Kate Sith. She internally squeals at the sight of so many furballs, wondering if it would be wrong to dive into the crowd. Joji quickly interjects, warning her not to do it as it could cause controversy, and reminds her that the camera is ready and she should stand back. Later, standing before a large, solitary tree, Sable looks around in awe, exclaiming that McKee's Joji's dungeon is amazing, spacious, and comfortable. Joji, looking out over the landscape, clarifies that it's not actually as large as it appears, promising to explain the details later. He smiles, seeing the potential. It's becoming a village. The panda monster Bunbuku agrees, noting that with their manpower issue solved, they could try all sorts of new things. Joji announces the first order of business, building homes for everyone, including the previously discussed barn. With the plan set, he waves goodbye for now, declaring that the Ohagi ranch will continue to develop. As he turns to leave, Ohagi, now back in its small form, points out red cones placed as markers, questioning if they're meant to be a boundary. Joji looks up at the sky, then back towards the lone tree in the distance, a look of confusion crossing his face. He wonders aloud if the dungeon has somehow gotten bigger. Elsewhere, a man in a dark fedora watches these events unfold on a pair of monitors. He clenches his gloved fist, declaring the spectacle magnificent. He has been thoroughly entertained once again. Leaning back in his ornate chair, the imposing figure commends Joji's performance. He notes that not only did Joji resolve the berserk state of the monsters, but he even managed to tame them, truly exceeding all expectations. His sinister presence marks him as a clear villain. His gaze remains fixed on the screen as a shadowy, tentacled form slithers nearby. He looks forward to what comes next, bidding farewell until the next time. While watching a television program featuring the famous Nukunuku hot springs, the great wolf Zentsai and the small dragon Ohagi are captivated. The host on screen enthusiastically introduces a popular segment, questioning the temperature of the bath as water splashes around him. The host declares his intention to enjoy a drink with the spectacular open-air view as his appetizer, sighing in contentment that the perfect temperature is melting his tired body away. The scene has a profound effect back in the living room, where Joji, Zentsai, and Ohagi Dragonoid are all sprawled out in blissful relaxation, as if soaking in the springs themselves. Ohagi swallows in anticipation. As the man on television shouts his love for the drink, a low growl of desire emanates from Zentsai, who lies beside a sleeping Joji. Stirred from his slumber by the sound, Joji drowsily questions what is happening. His desire suddenly erupts into a powerful roar. Zentsai rears up, barking that he wants to go to a hot spring right now. The sheer force of his demand sends everyone in the room, Joji, Ohagi Dragonoid, Sable, Kanten, and Ohagi, flying backward in shock. Ohagi Dragonoid quickly tries to calm the massive wolf down. He quietly considers the situation. Joji knows Zentsai loves baths, but with his magnificent true size, there's no way he can fit in their narrow bathroom. Though he sometimes uses the large public bath at Monster Park, it isn't truly satisfying for him. Zentsai gives him a pleading look, and Joji can only apologize. Joji explains that Zentsai uses magic to control his body size indoors, but maintaining the smaller form feels cramped, like keeping his limbs constantly tucked in. When bathing, he yearns to stretch out freely in his original size. Joji thanks him for his constant consideration. Just then, Sable emerges, fresh from a bath, commenting on how nice it was. The small cat monster thanks Joji for the bath, letting him know there's cow milk in the fridge. The other smaller monsters are also grateful, taking turns in the small tub. Joji feels a pang of guilt, acknowledging how cramped it must be and how the larger monsters can't even fit. He wishes they all had a big bath where everyone could relax together. His concerns are compounded by another issue. As he and Ohagi Dragonoid review their finances, she points out the high utility bills. Joji sighs, stating that everyone works so hard and deserves a proper bath, declaring that employee benefits are important. A fire of determination ignites in his eyes. Joji announces a bold new plan. They're going to build a large public bath. The surrounding monsters erupt in cheers at the idea. Ohagi Dragonoid soberly reminds him that supporting a large household is tough and that their finances are precarious if streaming revenue drops. Undeterred, Joji declares that they should begin preparations immediately. She is already one step ahead. Ohagi Dragonoid reveals she has compiled a list of monsters that could help with the construction. She proposes they hold a strategy meeting with everyone based on her research. Joji surveys the bustling street, amazed at the progress. With kobolds handling construction and various monsters contributing, the area has transformed into a lively settlement. He remarks with pride that the Ohagi ranch development has gone so well, it's now a proper village. He continues to observe the scene as Ohagi Dragonoid and a Kate Sith join him. The Kate Sith explains that with everyone cooperating, the kobolds on heavy labor and the Kate Siths on design and decoration, construction is moving quickly. Joji marvels that there are even more buildings than the last time he was here. His attention then turns to a different kind of progress. He checks in with Sable and the Kate Sith Elder, who are managing an online video channel. Sable excitedly reports on their success, mentioning new popular videos and a growing subscriber base. Sable proudly presents the Cat Sable channel, which is currently featuring a video titled, I Crashed a Cat Meeting. The channel statistics are impressive, boasting nearly 700,000 views. Sable explains their simple but effective strategy. With enough treats, any cat can be won over. He expresses his surprise, admitting he didn't even know they had started a channel. Sable, surrounded by other gleeful Kate Siths, celebrates the skyrocketing view count and high rankings, declaring that more income sources are always better. The excitement catches the attention of Ushimaki and Ohagi Dragonoid. Ushimaki, clenching a fist, declares that her instincts were right. Fluffy content never fails. Ohagi Dragonoid agrees, urging Sable to keep working hard to become a top-ranked channel so they can dominate the fluffy content market. Joji watches them, noting how well the two get along. Suddenly, a loud crash shatters the celebratory mood. A kobold is sent flying through the air, knocked aside by a powerful kick from Zintsai, the Great Wolf, who has just arrived with immense force. During a training session, a kobold spars aggressively with Sable, their wooden swords clashing. The kobold's attack is suddenly halted as a voice commands, "That's far enough." The command came from a blonde woman wearing glasses, who has stepped in to grab the kobold's wrist. She calmly advises that focusing too much on the enemy ahead leaves one vulnerable from behind. Joji, observing the lesson, thanks her for the guidance. Joji marvels at how much everyone's movements have improved. The trainer agrees, commenting that they all learn quickly, which makes teaching them a rewarding experience as the various monsters continue their practice in the yard. She confesses that she was initially worried when asked to train monsters, but now sees their intelligence and physical abilities are excellent. She confidently states they could now fight alongside regular explorers in a dungeon, a declaration that leaves Joji stunned. Later, the group discusses the logistical problem of their high food expenses. Joji realizes that forming food-gathering parties for dungeon expeditions would solve their shortage. Putting that thought aside, he tells the trainer he actually came to consult with her about something else. He explains his idea, to build a large public bath so everyone can wash up after training. The trainer agrees it's a good idea, and Joji adds that he needs to find someone with expertise in construction. At the mention of construction, the kobold leader, Kukin, steps forward and confidently declares, "Leave it to me." Joji sees this as the perfect debut mission for them. The trainer suggests a party of 4, but Joji says he plans to bring several of the monsters along. He begins to outline the party roles. Stolen, the weasel-like monster, as the swift fighter who strikes first, and Parfait, the rabbit monster, as a long-range attacker skilled in archery. The trainer smiles, ready to name the final member of the team. She points forward decisively and announces, "And finally, my best disciple." Her finger lands directly on a stunned Joji. "Me?" he exclaims in disbelief, as Chacha looks on, equally confused, wondering since when he had become the trainer's best disciple. He recoils in surprise as a small, black, cat-like creature suddenly appears perched on his head. The blonde trainer calmly introduces the newcomer as Eclair, their scout for the mission. As he processes this, Ohagi, in her dragonoid form, expresses her doubt to the trainer, questioning if such a small and seemingly unmotivated creature is truly up to the task. The trainer reassures her, stating that despite his apparent lack of motivation, Eclair is quite capable. Looking over the assembled party, which includes the kobold leader and several Kate Sith, she declares that these members will work just fine. With the team finalized, Joji turns his attention to their destination. He reviews information about volcanic dungeons, noting their classification as high-difficulty areas due to extreme hazards like lava rivers and falling volcanic bombs. He confirms that the monsters they seek are native to these perilous regions. He voices his concern to the trainer, admitting that even with Ohagi and the others, the mission seems incredibly dangerous. She agrees, adding that the specific dungeon where their first candidate lives is known to be particularly hazardous. She then reveals a complication. She has a job from the guild and will be away for an unknown period starting the next day, meaning she cannot accompany them. Joji worries about finding other experienced explorers to join them on such short notice. As he considers their predicament, his phone chimes. Ohagi asks what it is, and he explains that he just received a message on social media from an unknown sender. He reads the message, a simple note from someone who enjoys his videos. Before he can give it much thought, a colossal structure suddenly erupts on the horizon, its appearance shocking him, Ohagi, and the trainer in a stunned silence. A few days later, the party begins their journey. At a train station, Joji, carrying Ohagi in her small form, instructs the kobold leader on how to use a ticket machine. The large kobold squints at the screen, complaining that he can't see well, and asks Eclair for help as the other monsters look on.